Tonight, Constantine goes on an exorcism spree all around New York, and it is the funniest thing I've read all week. Anybody remember that time that Shazam got fire-based powers? Because I guarantee you no writer ever did. And Tom King finally gets a chance to spend 40 pages telling us why God sucks. All that and more tonight on the Not-So-New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 219 of the Not-So-New 52. I am your host and got two things I want to talk about before we get into the episode proper. Number one, I hinted this at the end of last episode, but this episode will have 12 comics. Now, when I first made the schedule for this episode, it had 13. What changed? Well, when I was initially planning the show, there is another book that came out this week called Superman American Alien. It is written by Max Landis. It is kind of a Superman origin story, but it is set in questionable continuity. And by that I mean it's not really part of the New 52. So that's my technical reason as to why I'm not covering it on the show, because it's not really part of the New 52. But then again, you can make the argument that none of the DC YOU series are part of the New 52. So it's a little bit hazy. My actual honest-to-God reason as to why I'm not doing it is screw Max Landis. Don't want to cover his book. Don't want to do that. So yeah, that's my little personal thing of why I'm not going to be covering that. So if you're keeping up with the New 52 stuff, and you must know that did come out, feel free to catch up with it on your own time. I will not be covering it on this show, but the rest of the book's still fair game. The other thing I wanted to cover, and this is so minor and weird, and I'm going to sound like such a creep for even saying this, but I was doing some self-Googling, more specifically for the show, and I was just seeing, like, has anybody mentioned me at all? And there is one guy, he showed up in the comments a few times. I can't remember his specific name, apologies. It's various different inclinations off of Hawkman. And hopefully he's still listening to the show. And the reason I say that is because several times he mentioned this show on Reddit, and he's like, hey, there's this show called the Not-So-New 52. Great show. Love it. Cool. Great. But he's wrapping up the New 52, and I want to do something similar for like Rebirth or whatever. And I'm like, great, man, you do it. You get to it. But one of his posts, he's saying like, hey, the Not-So-New 52. He just ended the New 52. So I'm going to be continuing with the DC YOU era. And he posted this like 5 months ago. And all I can think is like, bro, I'm still going. Like the show, the way he wrote it, it made it seem like I stopped the show at episode like 206 or whatever. Like whenever the Convergence was wrapping up, and I'm like, no, I'm still going. I hope you're still here, because like, how many people dropped off when I ended that episode by saying like, and that's it for the New 52, and they just immediately smashed the unsubscribe button. I'm just like, well, thank God that's done. No. I had like 50 more episodes in me. Please come back. So yeah, no, just weird. Hawkman 007 or whatever inclination you're going by, send me a line. I want to know you're still here, because frankly, you're like the only person who ever shared anything about this show. Again, so weird, so creepy, so personalized, but I don't know. I just had to mention it. Anyway, all that out of the way. We do have 12 comics, however, some of them are beefy, so let's get into the show proper here. I will tell you what we got in this week's episode in alphabetical order, more or less. We have Batman, Batman/Superman, Batman Beyond, Catwoman, Constantine the Hellblazer, Justice League United, Red Hood and Arsenal, Starfire, and Teen Titans. Now, those are all the normal stuff. We also have 2 one-shots, which are Darkseid War Green Lantern and Darkseid War Shazam. Definitely worth checking out the Green Lantern one if you have not. And then our weekly book, which is Batman and Robin Eternal. So all that's in the show. I don't know what order I'm going to put it in, but I'm definitely going to front-load those Darkseid Wars, so let's check them out. Justice League Darkseid War Green Lantern #1, written by Tom King, art by Doc Shaner. So in the main Justice League book, Batman told Green Lantern, hey, what with Darkseid gone, all of the parademons are going to go to the brightest place in the universe, which turns out to be Oa. And so we pick up with that sort of thing where we see Oa's screwed. All the parademons have shown up. John Stewart is sending a message out to Hal saying like, hey, I'm using the last of my charge here to like, we're sending this message. It was completely overrun. The parademons showed up and they started going nuts and they started taking people. They had a mother box and they shoved it into the central power battery. So like it became something new and it was saying like, will you be my god over and over again? And anytime a Green Lantern was brought up to by the parademons up to it, we'd say no, because like that's our whole thing. We're Green Lanterns, damn it. We're not going to overstep our bounds. But then they just turned us all into parademons anyway. Like we're all now part of this parademon army. So everything here is now covered in green. And he says it in like an oh god sort of way. So all this time, we see Hal Jordan's just booking it, trying to get to O as fast as possible. But then we get a flashback, question mark, where Hal is inside of a church. He's as a young kid, and it's sometime shortly after his dad died. And there's someone else in there, we don't get to see their face yet, saying like, oh, hey, kid, you need help? And he's like, yeah, my mom is Jewish, so she doesn't know anything about this, but my dad was Catholic. And she said to come down here and light a candle for him. And he's like, oh yeah, I reckon you're Martin's kid. You're Hal Jordan, aren't you? And he's like, yeah, my dad. Did you know my dad? He was a pilot. Everyone knew him. And he's like, yeah, I knew your dad. I wish I could have flied with him. He cut open the sky. That's what they always said. And he's like, okay, well, do you know what candle I'm supposed to light? Like, I don't know what to do here. He's like, oh, your dad never brought you to church? He's like, nah, dad always said it was stupid. Like, not the concept of it, but like, you can't rely on that stuff when you're flying a plane, you know? But like, it is kind of stupid, isn't it? Because if God was real, if all that happened, he was supposed to catch my dad, right? That's what gods are supposed to do, to catch you when you fall. And we see Hal's arrived, modern day, back on Oa. He's fighting against the Kilowog parademon, manages to take him out with a solid punch. And he asks the ring, like, hey, how many life forms are on this planet? And it's like 1.1 million and change. And he's like, cool. How many of them are not parademons? And the ring's like, one, you. And he's like, great, fantastic. So he starts digging out like graves, essentially, for all the parademons that he's fighting back, which are just his fellow lanterns at this point. And he's like, okay, well, tell me what you got. What's going on with the mother box and all that? And the ring explains mother boxes and says it's got a direct connection to the source, and they appear to become loyal to their users. And Hal's like, oh, so like a ring. Does a mother box also go and seek out new owners whenever their previous owner dies? And the ring's like, I don't know, it just beats me. This is all new to me. So this is Darkseid's mother box. The parademons have brought it here for whatever reason. And it's like, yeah, merging it with that, it's become a source of not only infinite power, but also infinite knowledge. It's this whole extra thing, and it's looking for a new master, because while the battery will give it all of the willpower, it doesn't have direction. It doesn't have a want. So we cut back to the flashback, and we see the guy is instructing Hal how to light the candles, being like, there, see, you just light a candle, and it's, you know, it doesn't really do anything, but it looks pretty. Like it that does something at least. And young Hal just freaks out, and he just throws the candle, and he's like, no, it's not pretty, it's stupid, and all this is a lie, and God just stayed up there and let my dad die. Why my dad should be alive, and why should God just sit up there and watch, like just like he's watching me down here, but just letting this candle burn? So we go back up to the planet, and Hal is continuing to fight back parademons. We see the counter is just ticking down, 1 1 1 1 over and over again, and the ring's like, you're not going to be able to beat them all. You still got 1 million left. And he's like, shut up and count. So he keeps on going against the Guardians and other parademons and stuff like that, until eventually there's all these ping noises, and he's overcome with the blackness of all these parademons. Cut back to young Hal. We see that the person that he's crying into is just like, hey, look, you got it all wrong. That's, you can't think of it as like God just watching, because like, yeah, he was just watching, same way that like you were watching and all that stuff. But The difference is that God has to watch. He doesn't have a choice in the matter. But he gave us humans choice. He gave us free will. And it's that will that makes us special. It's what makes us like better than God and all that. This is our world. We get to choose, but God just has to watch. That's all it is. And like, you know, even coming here to church, I bet you come here just to think we worship God or whatever. But no, God is worshiping us. And we see him reach down, pull up the candle again. He relights it for young Hal as Hal's calmed down. And we see as he's passing the candle over, he's got a Green Lantern ring on. So we cut back over to Hal, who has been captured by the parademons. He's brought before the mother box, and the mother box is like, will you be my god? And Hal's like, you know, I get why every other lantern turned it down. Like, we're not supposed to do this sort of thing. It's better to be cautious with all this power because we don't want to overstep our bounds, but screw it. I hate being cautious. Yeah, my name's Hal Jordan. My father cut open the sky. I'll be your god. And we see the mother box merges with his ring. It does all this stuff. Cuts over to Batman for a second being like, all right, you get it, Jordan. You see what I see when I took this chair. You see what we have to do, right? And Jordan just keeps on evolving. He's got a whole Sailor Moon transform sequence. And he says, we have become the god of light. And he gets a whole new costume and all this stuff. And as he's chilling out with the mother box ring, which he calls the mother ring, he's like, hey, with all this power as a god, am I able to restore Oa to the way it was before the attack, where I can just send the parademons back to Apocalypse? And the ring's like, yeah, you can do anything. You're a god. And he's like, all right, let's do it. Ping. And Oa is restored. And he's like, how many life forms are on Oa? And it's like 7,211, which includes the 7,200 lanterns, 10 guardians, and 1 god. And he's like, cool. I can set everything right. Like, I control the stars. I can do that right now. He's like, yeah, you can do anything you want. You're not bound by time or space. And as he looks out over the stars, he sees that they look like candles. And it brings him back to that younger age again. And he realizes, oh, wait a minute, hold on. What did I say? What do I say? I know now that I was the guy who went back and talked to my younger self that inspired me and got me through that hard time. I have to remember what I said. And we go back to the moment where he's, you know, the young Hal's crying on him. And he's like, oh, my dad should be alive. And what, God just sat there and watched and all that. And Hal reiterates, as the older Hal now, he's like, no, you get to choose. Gods don't get to choose. They just have to watch. But we get free will as humans. Gods don't have that. And Hal, as he's realizing, like, I could theoretically go back and save my dad. I am a god. I could do that, but like, I don't get to choose that as a god. I don't have the ability to do that. So he's like, all right, I don't want to be a god anymore. Mother Ring, can you destroy yourself and bring me back home? And he's like, yeah, you're God. I can definitely do that. It's like, great, do that. So Hal has removed himself from godhood. He's destroyed the Mother Ring, and he's like, all right, cool, did it. I could have made a better world. I did all that. I tried to, but why not? And the ring responds back, you, Green Lantern, were not willing to give up your own will. And he's like, yeah, all right, well, when I was a god, I saw what Batman was planning to do, and he's going to go crazy. So we got to go back to Earth and deal with that. So they set a course for Earth, and Hal says, all right, let's see if we can cut the sky wide open. And it ends there. It's a great issue. It's a fantastic issue. I've heard about this issue pretty much since like Tom King took over on Batman and Rebirth. And it's been that thing where it's like, oh, you know, if you want to read something great from Tom King, this is what you read. This is a single issue that just, it's very well done. It's got these themes running through it. It loops on like the time itself sort of stuff. It's great. And I absolutely agree. I have almost nothing wrong with this issue at all. If I have any sort of critique at all, is that it still kind of feels like it suffers from a bit of tie-in, just in the bit of like what Batman's doing. If we could just cut out those panels and say, here's just Hal getting the power, and then he goes off and like wants to go back to Earth for blank reasons, not specifically tying into the event. Absolutely perfect issue. Wouldn't have a problem with it. With this, it's kind of tied to this Darkseid War stuff, which is, you know, a bit of a blemish. So I'm going to say this one's a 9. I really enjoy it. I absolutely recommend it to anyone who hasn't checked it out. Worth it. Absolutely. Justice League Darkseid War Shazam, #1, written by Steve Orlando, art by Scott Kolins. So, over in the Justice League book, it was kind of just like a 1 to 2 panel thing where all of a sudden Shazam started freaking out and hearing voices, and then he just zoop right out of there. This shows where he zooped to. So we go to Philadelphia, where all of a sudden he lands on the streets, and the narration says, when Darkseid fell, Billy Batson's connection to the gods that made up Shazam, Solomon, Hercules, blah, 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 his connection blinked. And that was a problem. So as he lands, all of a sudden he hears like 4 or 5 different voices in his head, all talking at the same time, being like, oh, do something. You've got to do something, Billy. And he's like, what's going on here, man? And then he hears the voice of the wizard, which he specifically calls out. And he's like, wait a minute, wizard? What I thought you were dead. We're talking about a new pantheon? What's going on here? And he's trying to listen in as the wizard's saying, like, look, Zonus, it needs to be stopped. He'll savage the universe. And he's trying to listen into that, but everyone else is overlapping, talking. All of a sudden, he like boots up a bit of his powers. His hand lights on fire. And he's like, I've never had a fire power before. What's this all about? And a speech bubble pops up saying like, oh, this is my gift. Perhaps you're unaccustomed to such power or whatever. And like, again, more and more voices keep coming up. They keep talking, saying like, oh, I will give you true strength. Hercules was nothing. He was barely, like, who cares? I will give you raw, unchained strength. And another one's like, oh, you know, this is the way of the old gods. I can help you understand. And they're like, oh, what good would understanding do? And it just keeps on going on and on until Billy's like, oh my God, am I going crazy? What is even happening? Someone explain to me what is going on. And he tries to fly, and then he just like falls down out of the sky. And he's like, what do you mean I can't fly? What happened to my super speed? All this stuff. And then it's just like, your powers are being redefined. Whatever you thought you had before, it's totally different now. And one of the gods says like, yes, I'm the god of fire, art, and death. And Shazam's like, I don't want no evil gods up in me. What are we doing here? And he's like, that's not evil. There was a whole flash book about that. So as he starts getting a bit too much, like he's getting overwhelmed, he starts wanting to say the magic word, Shazam, and he's telling everyone to shut up. But the wizard comes in saying like, Billy, you got to say it now. Say the word. Say it now. And so he says Shazam. And as he does so, he's turned back into Billy. But he shows up in a nice little forest with a cottage, and this, I'm gonna say, woman. It's a new god looking creature, and it's like head to toe covered in fabric, but she goes by the name of Annapelle. And Billy's like, wait a minute, hold on, I recognize your voice. What's going on? You say you're part of my new pantheon? Like, what does that even mean? And it's like, oh, well, the wizard gave you the title of Shazam, but the powers come from an agreement with other gods. And so, you know, Solomon, Hercules, all that sort of stuff, they had the agreement. The agreement lapsed when Darkseid died, and so the wizard was desperate not to let you just be powerless, so called him for some reinforcements. However, one of the ones he called, because it's gotta spell Shazam, the Z, Zonus, crossed us. He struck them, and Zonus is this horrible evil from like the dawn of time, even older than Darkseid. He's just the worst, and he's going to try to fight the wizard for control of the godly powers of this deal of Shazam, and if he can do that, then he will completely destroy reality. So, you know, you might want to stop that. We'll help you, but it's up to you. And then all of a sudden he teleports to the next one, whose name is Siva. And Siva is apparently the dancer of destruction, and he has incredible strength. That's his whole thing. And immediately Billy's like, what are you, like, okay, fine, you're strong, whatever. He keeps on calling him weak, and Billy's just like, oh, you call me weak? You say I'm in danger? Shut up, I'm not impressed. And Siva's like, I like your spunk, kid. You got some moxie. All right, whatever. I'm good with you. So then he teleports over to the next one, which is this woman named Ate, or Ate, who is a goddess of impulse. And she tries to justify what this actually means. Apparently, this is about instinct and like courage, and it just being able to focus on the fight and bravery and whatever without being distracted. So that's her thing. That's what she brings to the table. And Billy's like, all right, well, you don't know me at all, lady. I'm done with you. Get me on to the next one. So then we cut over to Mir, who I think is a Martian god, if I'm remembering correctly. He's fire powers. He's big and he's not humanoid at all. And Billy's like, geez, I can barely look at you, man. You're blinding. And he's like, yeah, hi, I'm the one who's art, death, and fire. There's nobody else like me. I'm just what I am. And he basically tears down Billy a little bit, saying like, look, you're a vessel, and you're lucky to be a vessel. And trust me, we don't like Zonus. We want to go up against Zonus. And we're willing to back you, bro. 100%. But if you fail, we will find another vessel, and we'll just keep going through that, okay? So, like, if you can barely look at me, there's no way you're going to be able to deal with Zonus. And Billy's like, pshaw, you think I'm just a vessel? Nah, reconsider, man. And Faromir's like, all right, nah, I like his moxie too. So then he gets teleported to the last location where it's a fight to the death between the wizard and Zonus. And Zonus is trying to get the wizard's lightning staff because he thinks that's what holds the power. Zonus is like, screw you, wizard, you're a minor god, you don't even matter. So he blasts the wizard away. Immediately, Billy's like, wizard, I thought you died to give me my power. I thought that was the whole thing of our setup. And he's like, no, don't worry, I'll explain it later. Anyway, don't let him get the staff. And then he looks over and Zonus is just holding the staff. And he's like, by the way, my name is not Zonus. I mean, yes, that's my name, but you may know me better by my title that I chose, which is Yuga Khan, the father of Darkseid, one of the old gods. So we see that he basically gives this whole spiel on like, yeah, I'm going to use his lightning rod. I got the power of all the other gods inside of it now. And I'm going to reclaim Darkseid's throne. And I'm going to do what he did, but better, because I am his father and I'm better than that. I'm going to destroy the world, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, he basically is just like, screw you, Billy Batson. You were never even a threat to me. And now you're just a kid. You don't even have the powers of the god. And as he gets zapped, it was like, you think you know me. I've been listening to gods all day. None of you know me because you think that that staff is what holds the power. Guess what? It doesn't. And so he says Shazam. And a lightning bolt goes through the rod, because it's a lightning rod, not a staff. Goes through Yuga Khan, and Billy's just like, yeah, no, it was never, the power's not in the staff or with the wizard. Your plan was never going to work because the power was always in me. And you can't even comprehend, you can't even imagine, why would the wizard give up so much power into some random mortal? And that's why you lose, because you didn't even see that one coming. And the wizard's like, please stop talking so much and just finish him. Like, it's not going to work otherwise. So at that point, Yuga Khan tries to like flood his mind with images of his family being slaved and like put into some work pits or whatever like that. And Billy just points out like, no, gods and men, like it's a symbiotic relationship. It's the inspiration and the tools to make stuff happen. So he punches Yuga Khan in the face, destroys his sword, and says, I'm Earth's mightiest mortal, dude. And he says Shazam one more time, which calls down a lightning bolt that finally stops Yuga Khan. So at that point, the wizard gets up, he grabs his staff, and he's just like, hey, wizard, you're like wicked old, and also you probably should be dead. Like, why did you call me now? And he's like, I called you because I need you to just save my ass. Jesus, I every once in a while, I got to make you work for your title. And he's like, I'm sorry, did Yuga Khan say you were a god? You're a terrible god. And he's like, Billy, you're still a little shit, but whatever. I didn't expect anything more from you. So at that point, Billy calls out the wizard. Just like, no, but like, seriously, like I had 6 gods before. Now you gave me 4 replacements. And like, that's the best you could do. He's like, yeah, well, I'm working on it. Okay. It was short notice. I found you in SH and 2 A's. I'm the M. It turns out instead of wizard, my original name was Mamaragon, who was a thunder god or whatever. So I will give you my abilities there. I'm sure I'll live to regret that. And Billy's like, okay, that's 5. What about the 6th? I need a Z. And it's like, oh, well, it's Zonus. Like, he's out cold now. So, like, he doesn't really, we're going to put him in stasis. He's not going to be able to do anything. And this is going to be his penance for every horrible thing he ever did across his life. So Billy's like, all right, whatever. As long as you're sure I'm not going to get in trouble for that. So he's like, yeah, all right, so what's next for Magic's champion? It's like, oh, well, now begins the true battle for the brand new Shazam. And we get the strength of Siva, the fires of Hronmir, the compassion of Annapel, the source manipulation of Zonus, so I guess he can teleport, the boldness of 8, and the lightning of Mamaragan. So Shazam has fire and lightning powers, and also can teleport. I don't know if he can fly, though. I think that might have been cut out there. So, yeah. Here's the thing. I like the issue in so much as if this were to have stuck, it would have been a fine introduction. But I know for a fact that it didn't stick. Like, nobody has touched on the idea that Shazam has fire powers. Like, that's never come up again. Nothing here has stuck at all. And that's fine. You know, like some things they do, they don't, it's whatever. But it does make this issue feel just a little bit like, what are we doing? You know, why do we spend an issue of going through all this stuff of like, oh, you got brand new powers or whatever, when nothing's like, the next time we see him after Rebirth or whatever, it's like, no, it's still Solomon and Hercules and whatever else. Maybe Justice League will be the one that fixes that. Maybe they'll be the one that says, no, we give him back his original stuff. But I doubt it. So yeah, I can't get that out of my head. Beyond that, it's a fine issue. Art is good. I really do like the way they do it. It sometimes gets a bit repetitive of going through the gods, and they're just be saying like, here's a stupid kid. What do we need with you? And he's like, shut up. I'm not just a stupid kid. I'm a stupid mortal. But no, it's probably still a 7. I think it's earned that at least. I wouldn't shell out the money to buy it as a single issue for like full price, but reading it as a trade collection, that's fine. It's a fine enough read for that. Batman number 46, written by Scott Snyder, art by Greg Capullo. So last issue we had, actually I don't know if it was last issue. I feel like there was another issue in between, but regardless, the previous issue we had Bloom showing up and crashing the party that was the Gordon send-off party, more or less. And he just started murdering people. So this issue picks up and he's still just going around killing random people. We see that, like, it's kind of that scene from The Dark Knight where Joker shows up. He's cracking jokes. He's just like, hey, everyone, I'm here to talk about lawn maintenance. Get it? Because I'm Bloom. Don't worry about it. It's whatever. So, like, certain people are trying to get it away, trying to run, and he's just murdering them as they do so. So everyone else is kind of just standing around. And he's like, look, I want you all to know I was like you once. Idealistic, wanting to change the world, doing all that stuff. I want you to know that the Gotham that you all built, the amazing things that were able to grow here, made something like me. So congratulations on that one. And at that point, Jerry Power steps up and just like, all right, what do you want? What are you doing here? And just like, oh, well, I want you to know that your Batman program, love it, top tier. Here, I have $1 in my pocket. Take it. Take the $1. And she's like, I'm not going to take your $1, man. And he's like, oh, well, then can you give it to Batman for me next time you see him? And we see Gordon's up in the rafters, and Jerry sees this as well. And she's like, no problem. And then Gordon jumps down on the Bloom, who, mind you, is like 9 feet tall. He's full Slender Man stuff going on here. But Gordon jumps down and, using his Batarang gun, just plugs the back of his head with batarangs. And he's like, please work, please work, please work. And it doesn't. Bloom just spins around, pins down Gordon. He's like, oh, hey, nice to see you. You're out of your robot. Where's your robot buddy? And he's like, oh, I'll call him. Hey, rookie, go pick some flowers. And then the rookie suit comes charging in after Bloom. Bloom just immediately takes him down. And he's like, oh, hey, look, I appreciate all the show and flair and whatever, but I want you to know you're the one that I want to thank, okay? Because you managed to prove that the bat symbol means nothing anymore. It used to be like this big thing, but now, poof, meaningless in this city. And as he's about to like stab Gordon with a batarang, all of a sudden the bat blimp, which has crashed into this building by this point, it turns on its electromagnet. And Julia's standing there saying like, oh yeah, this was all Gordon's idea. Because of the electromagnetism in the seeds, it's able to lock on to Bloom's frequency. I don't know. Regardless, he's pinned up there. And Gordon's like, oh, okay, do you want your dollar back now? And he's like, no, not at all. In fact, I think you're on track to be the best Batman yet. And Bloom's face just gets, like, horrific here. As much as it looks like a flower's just printed onto a white mask, like, there is this teeth in the middle of the flower, and it really just pops out at this point. And he's like, oh, okay, we'll talk more when your friends aren't around. And then he breaks the electromagnet, everything goes dark, and he manages to escape out in the darkness. So, cut to Julie Madison's bathroom, where Bruce is taking a shower and she's like starting to get dressed, and Bruce is like, hey, you've like redone and undone your buttons twice now, you're staring into a completely fogged mirror, what's on your mind? And she's like, my dad is up for parole and I don't know how I feel about that, and there's a bunch of stuff I haven't told you. And Bruce is like, your dad sold guns to a lot of people, he was a very bad man, and crime impacted your family very heavily. And she's like, that's not all. And he's like, also your dad probably sold the gun to Joe Chill that he used to kill my parents. And Julie's like, okay, all right, I guess you know all that stuff. Bruce, I'm so sorry, I meant to tell you. And he's like, I don't care. After I lost my memory, Alfred was saying a bunch of stuff about closing the circle. I don't know what that means, but he feels kind of right, and I don't want to have my past influencing our potential future together. And he all but proposes here by basically saying, Julia, I want you to marry me at some indeterminate future date here. And she's like, oh, you're not thinking clearly. Just previous issue, you were all hemming and hawing about it. And he's like, no, but I've gotten clear now. I want to be able to move on. And if you want to go to that parole hearing for your dad, I will go there as your husband. When is it? 3 months from now? Plenty of time. So he pulls her into the shower and they have a nice little moment together. We then cut over to Duke, who's breaking into the Iceberg Lounge. He's on the phone with Daryl, basically saying, hey, Daryl, don't worry. I'm not going to be doing anything crazy. Just keep an eye out for my parents because they still haven't shown up. And then he goes ahead and does something crazy. We see there's a bunch of birds on top of the Iceberg Lounge where Duke says, I know the rumor about you guys. He doesn't elaborate. And then he, in typical Scott Snyder fashion, it goes on this long thing about, like, you know, my mom's a social worker, and when she's trying to break the ice with people, she does this thing, and, like, you know, just going into this very deep explanation, which is essentially just he's using liquid nitrogen to cut a hole in the roof of the Iceberg Lounge. That's it. So he rappels down. He gets into Penguin's office and he's like, okay, wouldn't store it on computers because Batman could hack in and wouldn't have time to get rid of it after Bloom injured Penguin. Where's his secret journal going to be? And so he just literally opens up the top drawer and he finds it there and he sees something shocking, but we don't know what it is. So then we cut over to Powers Industry, where turns out Jerry Powers has been making an army of bat robots. And Jim's like, this is insane. What are you planning on doing here? And she's like, we're going to put one in every city and we're going to expand the branding to the whole Justice League. Like, we're going to... the Batman's real legacy is that he takes the power from those gods of the Justice League and puts it back into the hands of the people. That's what we're going to market it as. And Gordon's like, okay, that's cool and all, but, like, what are you planning on doing with them right now? And he's like, well, we're going to take all these things and we've managed to trace down exactly where Bloom is because of whatever tech stuff. And it's down on Blossom Row, they say. And she's like, we're going to send everything there and we're just going to blow him to Kingdom Come. And Jim is like, that's probably what he wants. You know, this guy, he's smart. He's going to do this. And, you know, we're going to lose the city if you do this sort of stuff. And she's like, what would you rather we do here? And he's like, let me go in alone. Just this one. If I die, then I die. If I come back, then you can still fire me. But regardless, let me do this alone, because that's what Batman would do. And we then cut over to Bruce, who's looking at a child's drawing of Bloom, and Bruce doesn't recognize it. It's like, oh, what is this? What's going on? She's like, oh, Bloom, he killed people. And immediately the, like, mother of the kid came in and was just like, oh, yeah, don't draw that nasty man. And Bruce is like, what the hell's a Bloom? And he's like, oh, you didn't hear? Killed a bunch of people at the Powers thing. They're crazy. All the kids are scared. Something about the seed. And then Bruce is like, oh crap, wait, hold on, I had a seed. And he goes through his drawer, but he couldn't find it because I'm pretty sure Duke took it. So we cut back over to Duke and we see he's taking pictures of the journal. He goes to leave and in comes Penguin, I think Black Mask, someone else, and Ventriloquist. And it really doesn't matter, but they're all just like, oh, you think you can escape that easy? You know, the birds up on the roof, we spread the rumor around that they're the souls of all the people who died here in the Iceberg Lounge, and they're bound to this place. But really, we just feed them some food every day. And Duke is like, yeah, I know. I don't believe in the soul thing, but like, I do know that birds hate heavy metal. And he starts blaring some speakers that he had set up on the roof, which causes the birds to swarm down here and allows him to at least apparently make his escape out. We don't actually see him get out, but it looks like he does. So then we go to Gordon in the rookie suit riding on a giant bat motorcycle, and he's like, all right, maybe this is the trap. Maybe he wanted Batman to come alone, but regardless, we got to go in. We have a special machine that's going to stop his powers, but it's super short range, and we can't activate it until we're like right on top of him. So got to be able to do that. And then Gordon, in typical Scott Snyder fashion, explains the history of Blossom Row in this city and how it was a nice little charitable place in Gotham where kids could make little bits of flower art, and wouldn't you know it, they were able to pay for their tuition because of rich people who paid way too much for it. It's nothing else. That's just how it was. So Gordon shows up in the warehouse where Bloom is, and Bloom doesn't even try hiding. He's just like sitting up in a window being all emo, just like before he had a whole bravado to his voice, but now it's all in lowercase, and he's like, yeah, hey, look at the city. Like, it's all going to change super soon. And you know what? I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss this kind of city. And Batman's like, okay, well, I'm going to put you away. And whatever it is you were planning, it's not going to happen. So don't worry about it. And he calls for the rookie suit for backup to come in and take out Bloom. And Bloom's just like, you heard him, Rookie. Take out the bad guy. And Rookie comes in and grabs Gordon by the throat. And seemingly this was all part of Bloom's plan. Dun, dun, dun. I like it. I think it's a solid issue. I think it drags a little bit in the middle with the whole Bat Robot Army thing. I don't think, like, maybe that'll come back up later and we're just setting the seeds here, but that's really the only part of the issue that I was like, okay, whatever, what are we even doing here? That and the Blossom Row bit, because I swear to God, we've had this Blossom Row thing explained like 5 times, and every time it's different. It's like, oh, wait, no, this is a piece of greenery that was left over after the 0 year. That's what Blossom, that's where we're at. Like, I don't care what the history, you could just say it's a street. I don't ask why Crime Alley is called Crime Alley. That being said, I'm sure there's like 3 stories that answer that anyway. So yeah, I think this one it's solid. It's very good. I'd give it an 8, but I feel like there's aspects to it that's keeping it from an 8.5. It could, without those couple of things, it very easily could have gotten there, but an 8's still nothing to, sneeze at, so still great. Constantine, the Hellblazer, number 6, written by James Tynion IV and Ming Doyle, art by Riley Rossmo. So, the whole rest of the arc that happened before this happened. This kind of doesn't go into it that deeply here, but we open up with this little girl who's knocking on Constantine's door, begging him for help because the thing in the basement is back. And all of a sudden, this horrific, somewhere between Guillermo del Toro and Studio Ghibli monster comes in named Mr. Gobble. And he comes up and he's like, oh, he's not here. No one can hear you scream. And he grabs hold of this girl and it's like, I'm going to munch you right up. And then in comes Constantine and being like, Mr. Gobble, I thought we had a deal. I gave you a good pocket dimension behind the boiler in the basement. And now you're here and you've got all this stuff of eating girls. What's that about? And he's like, oh, it was a joke, Constantine, just a joke. He's like, nope, that ain't gonna do it. You thought that I was gone and you thought that you could just eat up the neighbors. Well, I'm back, too little too late. And he pulls out this cube thing which absorbs Mr. Goggles, and that's it. And then he looks over at the little girl and says, Walter, what in the hell are you wearing? And he's like, oh, well, you always answer the door faster when it's a human kid. And he's like, Walter, you're an Archduke of Hell. Why are you wearing that? And the kid starts morphing into what I can only describe as like middle management as a Walmart, but it's a demon. And he's got like a little mustache and like a tie and like, it's whatever. And it turns out he runs a cat rescue, and he's like, yeah, no, we just gave away this adorable short hair to this couple. And Constantine's like, oh, you are a boring demon, Walter. Keep it up. So Constantine goes to his house. He gives a little monologue about how, you know, after you disappear from your life for a while, you go off and do something, you come back, but like things have still continued on without you. And so you just got to take it in stride and do what you can. For him, that's stripping naked and just sitting in his armchair for a while. However, because all of his ghosts are gone because of the previous arc, he is, for the first time ever, completely alone for a while. And he's like, I'm just alone with my thoughts, and that's not cool. And as he's looking through like his mail or whatever, he sees the menu for Oliver's Cafe, which is, of course, that guy that he's got a little bit of a crush on. And he's like, this guy keeps popping up into my life, and I'm not sure what that means. I mean, you know, with all the stuff going on, I don't want to talk to him because, you know, he might end up dead. But if he ends up dead, he might make a cool ghost. And he's like, okay, wait, hold on. That was too dark. I shouldn't go that way. Nah, don't think about that one. And he basically says, like, nope, I need to stay away from that guy. And I'm not going to be doing that. So then he says, he goes down this line of saying, like, look, when most of my friends in school were like just getting up on dial-up to look up porn or whatever, I was instead looking up how to summon demons and all that sort of stuff. I, however, have the opinion that magic and technology never really mixed. However, I got a few demons running a tech startup that would disagree. However, one guy that I was seeing when he first made me get a smartphone, when that all happened, basically saw that I had an ad in the back of like some weird conspiracy nut magazines and says that I'm never going to get business with that sort of attitude. So turns out that he's just had a running Craigslist ad for a while saying, a very handsome exorcist will solve spookiest problems. And so he looks at the stuff, sees recent hits that he got on there. There's like 67 things. He's like, well, if I got to keep myself busy, this is what I'm going to do. And it's just like a montage. We go through a bunch. The first one does take a full 2 pages, so I'll say that one, where he goes to a woman whose son has been possessed. And she gives the whole spiel like, we had a priest, he came in, he ran out screaming, and he killed himself 3 days later. And Constantine's like all smug. He's like, you said that this guy is quoting verses from the Iliad in Latin, not the Bible, right? And she's like, yes, does that matter? And he's like, oh yeah, no, you're going to be fine. So he goes into the kid's room. The kid's like, there is no Bobby, there is only Gordred. And he's like, Gordred, I knew it was you. You always hated quoting the Bible. You said it's too cliche, right? And the kid's like, Constantine, oh, you son of a bitch, how many years has it been? And they just start catching up. They're just like, hey, why don't you get out of the kid? We'll go downstairs. She's got some good whiskey down there. We can take some of that. And so the demon just comes out of the kid, and the mom's like, what? What's happening? He's like, oh, no, don't worry about it. This is Gordred. Could you pour us 2 glasses? And by the way, that's going to be $1,500. You could just send it to my PayPal. And then we just continue with that, where like everything he goes to is just funny, or at least the way he's dealing with it is like somewhat amusing. So like, this guy had his whole family replaced, and so Constantine just sits down at the table and talks to whatever like ghost did it, and it's just like, yeah, your family's fine. They're down in the crawl space at a bistro down the street, and you can put their faces back on, no problem. They just snap on like Lego. Then he goes to a karaoke bar that has a ghost dragon in it. That's just a thing. A group is calling about noises in the wall. Turns out it's just a normal raccoon. And Constantine's like, why the hell would you think to call me before you call animal control? What the hell is wrong with you? He gets an email from some fairies or pixies or something at a rave that they basically OD'd a girl on all of the pleasure that was felt within 1,000 miles. And he's like, of course she said she could handle it. She's an art student or an art school kid that's 22 years old. Down at the park, there's a bunch of hooded figures that Constantine just chews out for eating puppies. And he's like, nah, go down to the bistro, get some meat, and then come back here if you want to pet the dogs. There's a poltergeist in a washing machine, and it just keeps bleeding. And he's just like, I swear to God, poltergeist, you get out of there whether you like it or not. And the washing machine just goes, no. And then we cut over to Central Park, where there's a gargoyle who says, hey, I've got information for you. And the gargoyle is just like, hey, Constantine, did something happen while you were out in the UK? Because you seem a little bit more down than usual. And he's like, don't try to get into my head. You said you had information. He's like, I don't know. You're afraid. You're afraid that something might happen if you force yourself to like slow down. How much have you been at it tonight? Like, oh, this whole montage has just been one night thus far. And he's just like, look, this doesn't feel like you have any information or anything. And the gargoyle is like, look, me and a bunch of my kind came over here like a couple 100 years ago, 400 years ago. We've been watching this place, and New York is such a patchwork of magic. It's incredible the way that all this stuff lines up and all of this stuff going on. But like, you need to be aware that something is starting to alter how the magic of New York works. And as much as like you're a crap magician, you're our crap magician. So you need to be aware of that. And the city itself has a plan for you, and it's going to push you towards what you need to do. You owe this city. You need to listen to it. And Constantine's like, I don't know anything to anyone. Screw you. Get out of here. And as he starts walking away, we see Oliver, that cute guy, recognizes John, but John just keeps on walking. So more montages. We get a thing with antlers that was being unruly in a bar. We have a woman who's got some sort of spirit in her because her chest is laughing. There's some creature in the polar bear tank at the zoo that looks like a shark with like crazy amount of tentacles. A bunch of trolls have taken over a toy shop or a candy shop or something like that. There's a haunted buffet in Hell's Kitchen, and we get one last buzz at the end of the night at the, I think it's the Papa Midnight Club, but it just says at the Linton Midnight, saying it is important that we speak immediately. And he goes there, but it looks like he doesn't go in. And I'm not sure why. It doesn't quite make it obvious there. But as he makes his way back home, he passes by Walter, who's got a cat in his arms, being like, oh, hey, I just ordered this new takeout place. You should try it. It's really good. It's from Oliver's Cafe. And John turns around to see that Oliver is right there on the stairs saying, oh yeah, he's already had some. So they start small talking. Oliver's like, you look like you've had quite a night. And he's like, yeah, totally. And Oliver's like, hey, this was my last drop off of the night. I have a little bit of extra food, but it might be too much for me to eat by myself if you want to share it. And he's like, oh, you don't think the boss will mind? He's like, I think the boss will be fine with it. And Constantine, like, hesitantly goes to open the door, just being like, oh, I really should. And Oliver calls him out by saying, like, look, you look like you're terrified that if you pull that handle and open the door, that you're going to be alone in there. And I've been there myself. Best solution, some beer and a couple-hour-old curry. Sound good? And Constantine just pauses, and he's like, you know what? Sure. All right. I'm curious what the universe has in store for me. Welcome to my world. And he opens the door, and like the immediate inside the light of the door seems very happy, but in all of the shadow lurks a bunch of horrific looking demons. So I'm sure this will only turn out well for Oliver. No, I really like this issue. There's a line somewhere in the middle that I caught myself laughing at. I think it's when he's talking to the gargoyle. He says, you have to notice in the past, you'd have had like 1 or 2 cases a month. How many do you have right now? And all I could think is, this is that sequence in Ghostbusters. This is that sequence where it's like, have you noticed we've been a lot more busy recently? But then Constantine immediately responds with, if you're about to take out a Twinkie, I've got a good idea where you can shove it. And I'm like, all right. I don't know if that's Ming Doyle. I don't know if it's James Tynion. Whoever's writing that dialogue, you're in my head. Chef's kiss. Love it. No, the whole montage sequence is fantastic, and it eats up a lot of the issue as well. So I really don't have anything negative to say about this one. It's setting up future stories. It's doing its own thing here, and it just feels like a creative little exercise that really pays off. And it's fun. It's fun more so than anything else. So I'm going to give this one an 8.5. Really enjoyed it. Really suggest checking it out. Obviously, it's, 6 issues into a series, so maybe check out the arc preceding that as well, but when you get to this one, it's definitely worth seeing. Catwoman number 46, written by Genevieve Valentine, art by David Messina. So last issue, Eiko is so strucken with anger and grief, she says, I'm gonna kill the whole crime empire in Gotham. That's the plan. So we open up this issue with a party being held that has literally all of the heads of the families there, and she's looking out over everyone just like, yes, I'm planning peace in Gotham. It's a celebration. May as well invite them. In steps Steph, who's like, hey, Eiko, Antonia Calabresi's here, and she doesn't have an invite. What's going to happen? And Aiko's like, let her come in, let's see whatever. But Steph sticks around just like, Aiko, are you really planning on killing all these people, or was that like metaphorical? And she's like, no, I'm actually going to kill these people. And he's like, yeah, these are the heads of the families. You can't do all that. And she's like, watch me. I absolutely could do that. And as Steph tries to stand up to her, she's like, look, you think you can stop me? I thought I taught you better than to start fights you can't possibly win. And Steph's like, I don't want to fight you, but like, you got to understand you're not in the best mental space right now, right? You clearly see that this is all through anger and stuff. And Aiko's like, look, I don't expect you to understand anything that goes on here, but like, I made promises to you when I was Catwoman, and you probably think I'm not following through, but I also made promises to Gotham when I was Catwoman, and this is one of them, and it's too late for everyone else here. So if you think you can fix Gotham, do it. So Steph leaves. We see Antonia comes up and just like, hey, hi. I'm not going to take it personally. I wasn't invited to this party. I just wanted to come by and offer my condolences. Like, I'm sorry your dad died. I know what it's like to lose a family member to all this craziness and the life we lead. Like, it's expected, but it's never wanted. And she's like, thank you. It means a lot to hear you say that. And she's like, right, absolutely. I'll be going now. And it goes like, you may want to avoid most of the city. Go to this very specific location on your way home. And she's like, oh, thanks. So she catches the hint. She heads out, and Croc's like, hey, should we like reconsider? She wasn't supposed to be here. Like, should we change our plans up? And she's like, nope. Our 15 teams out in the wild have already gotten the signal. It's time to do it. Croc, you're free to go. Let's get this party over with. So we get that scene from Breaking Bad with the prison killings where all around Gotham, just random gangsters and whatever are hanging out, and they're just like, oh yeah, the boss is at the party, we could just chill out, whatever. And then they're all just attacked by Hasegawas, and they are murdered, and it is brutal. We see Detective Keyes and Alvarez are getting calls all over the city like, wait a minute, what's going on? What's happening? Jesus Christ, this is insane. All these people are dying so quickly. And they manage to get to one of the scenes, and they realize this isn't Selena Kyle's work. Maybe it's Black Mask. Has anyone even seen him? It's been like 2 weeks. I think he's dead. So yeah, whatever this is, I don't think the cops are ready for it. And we see Selena's out as Catwoman. She catches one of the guys being killed by Hasegawas and tries to give chase after one of them, but they manage to escape. However, on a fire escape nearby is Stephanie, who's like, hey, it's Aiko. She's the one behind all this. You got to stop her. And she's just like, yeah, I figured. I know it's Aiko. I figured she'd be, testing out her territory, trying new things. And she's like, no, this is happening everywhere. The heads of the families are all being killed. Antonia's there. And Catwoman's like, I'm sorry. Antonia's there and she's killing all the heads of the families. Okay, I gotta go deal with that now. Call the cops, Alvarez and Keyes, they'll help you out. And Stephanie's like, no cops. You gotta, look, I gotta confess something. That PI, did you remember that storyline? That PI that got killed? It was me. I killed the PI. And Catwoman's like, you did what? You didn't think to tell me? I've been wasting a lot of pages on that. And she's like, yeah, my dad, Clue Master, like he really wanted Batman to pay and like unmask him and all that stuff. And I thought that was wrong. And then I saw this PI was trying to do the same thing. So I went and I fought him and I hit him on the head a little bit. I didn't think it would kill him, but I guess it killed him. He just collapsed and like, I was upset. I'm sorry I made it happen. And I thought we could move past that. And Catwoman's like, look, that guy died because he was shot after you left. Like, whatever it wasn't you. He was killed by a pro. So congratulations, you're not a murderer. Anyway, I gotta go deal with this party thing. So she runs out, goes to the rooftop party, and Aiko's standing there amongst just a pile of bodies. No one else is left alive. And she's like, first time we really spoke was up here. We were talking about like art and poison and stuff like that. Yeah, I thought it was, I knew better than to get into a battle or whatever. Seems like I was wrong. And immediately Catwoman just lunges in, starts trying to attack. They get into a brutal fight, like crashing through windows, doing whatever. And Catwoman's calling her out, saying like, how dare you? Yeah, how can you do this? And she pulls out a knife Aiko does, and just like, somebody has to. Gotham's going to be safe now. All the crime families are gone. We can do the Red Hood plan. We can take over the city and do things the right way without innocents getting killed. So she starts trying to stab Selina. And Selena's just like, oh yeah, it was worth all that, worth all these lives, worth Antonia's life. And she gets punched in the face. Aiko does. And Aiko's like, Antonia wasn't even here. I sent her away. Don't worry about it. She's cool. But Selena's not hearing it. She kicks Aiko down to the ground. And Aiko's just like, go ahead. I didn't expect to live through the night. Like, if this is how it has to go, this is how it has to go. And Selena hesitates for a moment, but then drops a knife and says, like, look, the cops are coming. You got 2 minutes to disappear. Goodbye. And they part with each other and says, like, yep, this is how it ends. Some things you can't take with you. So Selena's running down the sewers afterwards. She goes to talk to Penguin, Cobblepot, and turns out Antonia is just sitting there along with, God, I always forget his name, Ward? That sounds right. They're just sitting there playing chess or whatever. And Antonia's like, yeah, Aiko told me to take a very specific route home. I took the hint. I knew that was code, and so I came here anyway. And Penguin reveals, like, oh, is all the killing done? And she's like, wait a minute, you knew? And it's like, of course I knew. Like, I managed to get out a pretty sweet deal out of this where I'm going to own a hell of a lot of real estate in this place. So at that point, Antonia and Ward are like, okay, well, we'll be leaving. And since the Calabrese family will defunct be the leader of the crime families, we'll talk to you about that real estate, Penguin. Ta-ta. So they head out, and Catwoman talks to Penguin for a little bit. And Penguin's just like, yeah, you know, it's terrifying when you think that you lost someone that you didn't even know you needed. But if people like your cousin, that kind of experience makes them wiser. But for us, we just become monsters. And Catwoman's like, all right, well, that was loaded. Bye. We see Selina meets back up with Antonia. They drive home. And it basically says, Antonia's like, yeah, I'm happy with this result. Like, we were going to have a war otherwise. We're going to be, like, testing each other. It saved us 5 years of assassination attempts. So as much as she did something that I never could, I understand why she did it. So Selina asks why Antonia went to the party. And Antonia's like, because I understood the loss of losing family like that. Like, I can understand that. So at that point, Catwoman's like, look, someday I'll be able to deal with all this. Someday I'm going to come to terms. But like right now, I don't feel like I know anything else that happened out here. Maybe it's enough to get out of all this just alive. Maybe that's something before it's too late. But as it stands right now, Gotham is waiting for me. And so she rides off on a motorcycle, and we have the end. And they've been doing little quotes throughout these to historical figures, and they say, Caesar Borgia says, I have not forgotten the way to reconquer the city of Urbino. So whatever that means. It's the end of Genevieve Valentine's run. It's good. I like this run. It was solid beginning to end. I have notes. I have said my piece on how I think that maybe it got just a bit too lost in the weeds of like introducing all these concepts and new characters, whatever. But looking at it from the back end and seeing what we did with it, I think it's more interesting to view this as Aiko's story. It's more interesting to view this as kind of a dual companion piece where we had Catwoman, who was sitting at the top and then gave it all up, and then Aiko, who was kind of shunted into this power and used it for the wrong reasons. And you have these two as like a dark mirror to each other. Done very well. Appreciate the entire arc as a whole. I think I just got a little bit lost in the weeds when it came down to the inter-policy workings of crime families. That could have been toned down a little bit. In terms of this particular issue, I think it's also very well done. Aiko feels like she does finally come into her own here. She's her own character rather than just someone following in Catwoman's shadow. So, yeah, no, it's great all around. I'm going to say this one is definitely earning up to an 8. And I think the run as a whole probably gets up to that 8 level as well. It's very well done. So, yeah. Justice League United number 15, written by Jeff Parker, art by Paul Pelletier. So last issue, OMAC showed up. We're still in the middle of the war stuff. It is all different plot lines of like Stargirl with the Red Baron and whatever else. So we pick up with that, where everyone is converging to the center of the battlefield. Stargirl is in the Red Baron's plane, and they're flying in, looking for her cosmic rod. Steel and Robot Man are fighting against OMAC, and at one point, the Red Baron fires off some bullets, which manages to give them the upper hand enough to punch him in the face, and then he just goes down, and they're like, awesome, cool. Batgirl and Vandal Savage see Robot Man and Steel, so they start making their way over. The Frankenstein's Agents of Shades' creature commandos are just like, hey, wait a minute, hold on, she's wearing a bat costume. Does that have something to do with you, Velcoro, the vampire thing? Easy Company comes in. They see Savage moving people around, and they're like, hey, well, okay, looks like there's some guys wearing full body armor over there, not knowing that it's Steel and Robot Man. Let's go over there. So everyone just kind of converges in this central point. It looks like a bunch of Nazis start coming in, so the Red Baron has to provide a bit of cover to not let them all get caught in the crossfire, so he flies his plane in the middle. Sergeant Rock sees the German plane. He's like, well, it's not the swastika, but it's clearly German, so let's shoot it down. So they shoot the Red Baron's plane. He passes a parachute back to Stargirl saying, hey, I had no idea if this parachute's even going to work, but you got to be the one that takes it. And she's like, oh, no, you have to jump out with me. He's like, no, go. The sky will kill us all. And we down on the ground, we see Steel's like, hey, Stargirl, I got your cosmic rod. I'm going to be throwing it at a 37-degree trajectory in 3, 2, 1. And he throws it up. Stargirl manages to jump and catch the cosmic rod, which gives her just enough time to turn around, grab hold of the Red Baron, and get him out of the plane. So, yep, everything worked out fine there. And again, everyone just converges into the middle of the battlefield. So we've got Easy Company coming up. They're like, hey, Vandal Savage is here. He's prisoner of war. It's like, no, we need him. Everything's going on in order to stop this war. And they're like, oh, you want to stop the war? Okay, fair enough. Frankenstein shows up with his creature commandos. OMAC comes out of here saying oh, who beat me up? I want answers. There's a really weird miscoloring where OMAC has normal colored skin on this page. I hate it. But regardless, Vandal Savage shows up and he's like, wait, here's the white flag. We surrender. Geneva Convention. Everyone's got to stop fighting each other. And so Stargirl and the Red Baron land. And as everyone just coalesces, Robot Man's like, cool. So what's the plan, Savage? What are we going to do? And Savage is like, honestly, I thought the Red Baron was going to start shooting everybody. That's the whole reason I wanted everyone to stop fighting for a while. But guess that's not going to happen. To which Sergeant Rock's like, hey, that's against the rules. You can't do that. And then all of a sudden, a bandaged-faced man that we've seen in previous issues throws a grenade smack dab in the middle of the group. Robot Man jumps on it. He's fine. It's not anything too bad. It's just a normal grenade. And they're like, oh, geez, who threw that grenade? What's going on here? So time passes. We go to night. Everyone's sitting around a campfire. They're all talking about everything they need to talk about. And they're just like, yeah, okay, this is the breaker. It's meshed together all these time periods, blah, blah, blah. But they come to the conclusion that there is an abbey. There's a church that is kind of the central point. Everyone keeps on trying to get there, but they take too many losses, and then everything resets, and no one can ever get there. But that's the point they need to get to stop this war. And then whoever the bandage man is that throws the grenade, everyone's like, oh, well, he's someone who doesn't want us all working on the same side. He wants someone who wants to try to break up exactly what we're doing here. And they say, well, he must be a soldier of some sort. He's got all the paraphernalia and whatnot, but he's unknown to us. So we'll just call him the Unknown Soldier, which obviously is a DC character in their own right. But they're like, okay, whatever. So Sergeant Rock steps up. He's like, look, we've got robots. We've got time traveling stuff. We've got all this new stuff. I think we could stand a chance. We have an alliance. Everyone tell me your skills. Let's come up with a plan. So the next day we see everyone moves out. It's this huge war front. Everyone's coming out at once. Because they're so used to the reset of the time, they know exactly where everyone's going to be coming from each angle. So, snipers are around the corner. A troop of Nazis is coming up at this point, and it's just like, all right, let's get going. This is what we need. However, the Easy Company's always got stuck at the tanks. A bunch of German tanks come out at this point, and they're just like, but now we've got some heavy hitters. So Robot Man and OMAC go in. They tear up the tanks, no problem whatsoever. So it barely, it usually takes them a full day and a night just to get up to that point, but they managed to get through this in just a couple of minutes, and they get up to the Abbey. We see Stargirl blows a hole in the side of the building. Standing inside is the unknown soldier who's got his hands up and just like, okay, well, it's dressed in like American soldier garb. Why would it be doing that? And then all of a sudden it pulls out a gun. Batgirl throws a batarang to get rid of it. And then it starts going up with this energy. It starts looking like it's going to explode. And it's just like, oh, it's steel puts together that it's shifting through the years. It's going to... everything that it's read around it from 1944, it's going to go somewhere else, and then we'll have to start all over. But Sergeant Rock gets in with his bayonet, and he's like, nope, screw that, and he stabs the guy in the stomach, which causes this huge ripple effect, and wouldn't you know it, destroys the breaker. So all the people that were supposed to be in 2015 show back up in France in 2015, except for Vandal Savage, who immediately, what's her name? Why can't I remember? Alana? I think that's right. Is the other strange woman. She's like, oh yeah, no, he bolted. Of course he bolted. He was wanted and he's a criminal or whatever. But we took out a bunch of his secret bases, so it works out. So at that point they're like, yeah, it looks like everything worked out fine. Everything's great. And Batgirl's like, hey, tell Adam that I'm sorry I didn't believe in his team stuff before, but like, yeah, that really all came together. Each of us had a part to play. And I'm like, Batgirl, what did you do? You threw the batarang at the end. Was that really it? Was that really the thing that only you could do? But all right, fair enough. But she's like, yeah, tell Adam that. And she's like, oh, tell him yourself. If you look really closely when we go through the Zeta Beam, you might just see him too. And the final page is, we go back to 1944. We see that the Easy Company is broken through. Time's finally moving forward again. And they're like, yeah, all right, come on. The fight's not over yet. And it cuts back to 1918 where we see... the Red Baron is there with his wolf dog thing and standing on a cliff looking out over the countryside. And there's a little sticker in here that says, make war no more. I don't know if that's like a movement, if that's like a thing, a charity, an organization, but it's like an official looking logo. So sure, whatever. I think my biggest problem with this is too many threads. We split the group into too many groups. We had obviously Batgirl and Vandal Savage. We had Robot Man and Steel. We had Stargirl doing her own thing over with the Red Baron. We had Easy Company, which is kind of just doing their own thing on top of everything else. Frankenstein and them showing up. That was a thing. Also, this is the same OMAC that showed up at the end of Suicide Squad, because there's a specific editor's note that says he literally just came from that issue and showed up here, which I don't know how that works, but sure. Yeah, I think we just split it a bit too much. And having everyone converge here, once they all sat around the campfire and just like, okay, here's the plan. From then on, I'm good. I like everything they're going with there. That was solid writing top to bottom, but... the issues leading into it, I felt were just a bit too scattershot, a bit too nothing, like 10 lines, none of them moving. And honestly, you could have cut this down by a full issue, no problem, guaranteed. So I'm going to say this one is probably, I'll say a 7.5, but the arc as a whole is probably down to like a 6.5 for me. But that's not to say this issue was bad, and next issue is the final issue, so we'll see how we wrap up the series as a whole. Batman Beyond number 6, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Bernard Chang, the always illustrious. So, last issue we had Tim breaking into an old Court of Owls house for some reason, and Brother Eye's like, what the hell could he want at a Court of Owls house? This issue picks up with Brother Eye just being like, what the hell does he want at that house? I looked over everything. I can't find any reason for him to go back to that house. And Ink's daughter there, Deanna, is like, you're afraid of him, aren't you? And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm pissed off because I don't like not knowing something. But don't worry, I've sent an army of cyborgs to go destroy that place. So we see Tim is at the door, and he's in his modified rookie suit. And he's blasting all the cyborgs to pieces, and he's like, okay, I just have to keep this up until reinforcements arrive. And it is insane. Like, everything is converging onto this one spot. We see Ink then shows up, and she starts doing a whole bunch of stuff, and Ink's like, hey, what the hell are you still doing here? You said you'd go rescue my daughter. Go do it. And he's like, I gotta buy Barbara time. She's the one who's making the modifications. I gotta give her some time. So then in comes Micron, who's like, all right, well, I'm here now, so you get to it. I'll buy you time. And Tim looks at Ink and is like, are you sure you're in on this? And she's like, don't even have to ask. So Micron's now the only one having to fight. We see Brother Eyes like, seriously, I've looked through all the records. What the hell do they have down there? And Tim goes inside to reveal Batman put a teleporter completely off the books that goes up to the Justice League Watchtower. And nobody knew it was there. It was never on anything. It was always a backup. So Barbara's on the backside just like, okay, you'll get in there and then it's all up to you. You got to take out Brother Eye's watchful eye from up there. Good luck. So he teleports up, and immediately Brother Eye gets the intruder alert, and he's just like, what? He teleported up here? And Tim is immediately like, look, I know you're an AI. I know you know I'm already in here. Let's just, like, cut the BS, show yourself. And all the screens light up. He's like, hey, yeah, I gotta admit, teleporter caught me off guard, but welcome to Brother Eye Central. And Tim just tries to crack a joke, saying like, sorry, I forgot the flowers. And Brother Eye's like, I don't really respond to humor, so whatever. But he says, look, you've adapted, you've matured, you've prepared yourself, but hey, so have I. And then the body of Brother Eye, the one that he's using as an avatar, comes out, and Tim's like, oh, crap. I wasn't expecting you to, like, make a body. I thought I was just going to have to blow up some computers. This is a problem. And Brother Eye, like, just bashes open the head of the rookie suit. He grabs Deanna by the throat and starts tossing her around as well. So he basically justifies it by saying, yeah, I realize that there is a reason for having a body because it would allow me to experience the tangible touching of humans and feeling their fear. And also, guess what? My core is inside this particular body, so gives you something to punch. So we see, yeah, a punching map breaks out. Tim realizes that all the plans that they have gone out the window. He's trying to do whatever he can here. He, like, flamethrowers the bodies, saying, like, yeah, you know, Pinocchio wants to be a human. Here's the downside. So Deanna's like, hey, you're going to blow this place up if you aren't careful. And he points out, nah, Justice League made this place to withstand Darkseid. To which Brother Eye goes, I'm worse than Darkseid. So back down on Earth, like, Tim realizes they're running out of time. They got to take these cyborgs out quick, or else Barbara's going to be overrun. He uses some sonic devices on Brother Eye and then comes in and just shoves a batarang straight into Brother Eye's forehead. And he's like, oh, you want to destroy humanity? Not on my watch. And it explodes, and seemingly Brother Eye is down for like 10 seconds. And even as Tim goes, it can't be that easy. Brother Eye gets back up, is like, of course it's not. And he basically says, like, look, the last time, all those decades ago in Future's End, you came after me. You thought you beat me. I survived. I always survive. That's just what I am. This is my future now. So Tim yells out to Deanna to get over to the booth as he's having the suit ripped apart. And Brother Eye's like, I've taken apart your weapon system. There's nothing more you can do. And I'm going to turn you into my acolyte, Tim Drake. To which point, he causes one last explosion to put some distance between him and Brother Eye. And Brother Eye's like, look, you can't beat me. Like, there's no way you can do anything here. And Tim's like, look, we need to change things up. This isn't what we're prepared for. And Brother Eye's like, are you talking to me? There's no one else around here. What are you talking about? And he tells Ink now, and Ink comes off of his suit where she was hiding the whole time, and she latches onto Brother Eye and starts, like, seeping into all of his crevices and all of his bits where circuitry is, and just starts messing with it. Just starts basically breaking them apart bit by bit. So She tells Tim to get Deanna over to the transporter to get her out of there, and Tim's like, not without you, that's the plan, you got to get back over here. And she's like, plan changed, I got to take him out. That was always the plan, that we take him out, but this time I got to go with him. I cannot leave his core consciousness alive. So she keeps on encouraging Tim to go. Tim's like, no, please, you can come. And Deanna's like, oh, what's going on, Mom, are you coming with? And we see down on the ground, all the cyborgs are like starting to glitch out. They're not moving in their full way. As Brother Eye is trying to reboot, the whole satellite's coming apart. It's all coming down. And she says, hey, save my daughter. Turns to Deanna, says, I love you. And then explosion. The Brother Eye core body explodes. And Deanna gets like some of the ink on her hands, and she's like, Mom, pull yourself together, you can form again, right? But the whole satellite starts falling down, so they've got to get to the teleporter now. And as they teleport out, we see this massive explosion on the moon. Looks fantastic. And they get back down, and Micron and Barbara are like, we've gotten reports from all around the world, all the cyborgs have stopped moving, that's it, he did it. He actually really did it. So she goes in, sees Tim and Deanna in the teleporter, and she's like, hey, great, you both made it. Where's Ink? And he's like, oh, bad news about that one. And Deanna's immediately upset with Tim. Like, this is your fault. I will never forgive you. But she's like, okay, well, or Barbara's like, okay, we did it. The rest of the world is safe. Like, the cyborgs have stopped. Welcome home, Tim. It's finally Earth again. And he's like, no, it isn't. This place is still torn out. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to think of this place as home. And Barbara's like, oh, you say that now, but give it time. The end. Just kidding. We got like 12 more issues of this series, but it does say end. So, art's fantastic. Love that. I don't know. I'm torn on this one because it is just kind of a standard superhero plot, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's sometimes you just got to have a little bit of dumb fun like that, but it's weird to me because it feels beholden to Future's End. Like, it doesn't actually want to play in the Future's End sandbox. It feels like it got thrown into the Future's End sandbox and then had to spend 6 issues getting out of it. You know, like all the stuff that we did at the end of Future's End of setting up like Mr. Terrific and all this other stuff, the previous love interest, and she was still there and she was alive. None of that stuff comes back up. All of that's still not come up. It's 6 issues later and it's just gone. So it feels like we went in with the very biggest broad strokes, and then we had to just spend one arc of saying, okay, ignoring the stuff that we wanted to ignore and just getting out of this thing. Now we're in a post-apocalyptic future. And I would not be surprised at all if the next issue picked up like a year later. If we just full-time skipped because it doesn't feel like we want to play in the Future's End sandbox. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess that shouldn't impact whether or not I enjoyed the story, but it does impact like reading it because I always got the vibe that we don't want to be here. So I'm going to say this is a 7.5. Art's a 30 out of 10. Fantastic. But the story-wise, it's a 7.5. I think that's more than fair for what I was getting out of this. Hopefully now we can elaborate, we can do some more crazy things with the Batman Beyond universe, but this arc just kind of felt flat to me. Starfire number 6, written by Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Emanuela Lupacchino. So, last issue, Starfire came back home to discover that Soul was maybe dead, and Soren, the murdery guy from before, was there, and he probably did it. This issue picks up with a flashback of Soul's previous relationship, the one that she died, and he's grieving over. This is Maria. We see that they're at some fancy dress gala ball or whatever, and she's like, oh, God, this sucks. Let's get out of here. Let's go have some fun. They go and jump in the pool. And she's like, oh, stop splashing me. We're going to wake your sister. And he's like, oh, my sister's not even here right now. It's like, oh, well, then why the hell are we in the pool? So they go inside, they sleep together. And then all of a sudden, both their phones go off at the same time. They both work for the same Coast Guard. And it turns out there's a tropical storm that just gained strength. And so they're going out to have to go save those boats or whatever. A few hours later, They've mostly succeeded, but there's 2 more boats that they cannot get in contact with. And so Maria and Sol each take a boat. They go in opposite directions. They say, I love you, just before they split off. And I'm sure that just ends well for everyone. We then cut to modern day where Starfire is punching the hell out of Soren. As Sol wakes up, he did have a little bit of a head wound, but he's fine. He's coming back too. And because they're next to the pool, Starfire's like, I can't let this guy go. Like, I'm going to drown him. And so she pushes him under the water. His eyes start glowing, which causes her eyes to start glowing. And she starts getting another memory transfer where she sees Soren running out from the first murder. And then he's like hiding out in an abandoned building. He tries to go back and like see his family, but that doesn't work out. So he tries to hail a cab or hitchhike or something. That guy ends up dying, probably by some stabbing. And then another, like a police officer that ends up finding him dies. And then we see that he manages to steal a boat and kills the owners on that as well. So is it all intentional? Probably, but regardless, he's doing it. So Starfire sees all that just being like, oh, I want to kill him, but like I won't, I can't. And so she pulls him up out of the water, but he's not breathing. Sol comes over being like, he's not breathing. We have to get him back. And so starts performing CPR. And Starfire's like, this guy nearly just killed you, Sol, but like, fair enough. I'm glad to have you in my life, that you are such a good person that you're willing to do that. However, we can't let him get free, to which Sol's like, yeah, we'll get my sister to take him in, no problem. So then we follow the space bounty hunter, who has been taken on the contract to kill Starfire. He arrives on the moon and gets some stats saying like, oh, is there any life out there, any air out there? Do I need to suit up? And so he just like puts on the suit, steps 3 feet out of his ship and scans the planet, to which then it like immediately comes back and says like, there she is. We found her. It's on a small island. And they're like, is the island inhabited? And it's like, yes, absolutely. And it's like, perfect. All right, Coriander, today you die. And then he flies a ship down to the planet. So we're in the hospital. Stella's like, okay, tell me again what you saw. Tell me about this like murder stuff. And it's like, it was visions. It was something like that. I told you everything I could. He killed a bunch more people, and then I broke contact with him. It was like I was in a haze, like I was drugged or whatever. And she's like, okay, well, we sent him off to the FBI. We'll see if we get prints or whatever. By the way, thanks to you, my brother's fine. He's just got a bump on his head. Like, everything should be good. And as they're walking down the hallway, they see him in the room, and Starfire's like, oh my God, Sol. So she runs in, gives him a hug as he's sitting up. And they explain the situation, that he's some sort of weird psychic murderer type thing or whatever, but he's going behind bars, and whatever happens. Meanwhile, Sol's like, hey, I'm fine. You can get back to work, sis. Don't worry about me. Starfire's like, hey, don't worry. I'll look after him. And she's like, yeah, okay, thanks. So they immediately start flirting. He's like, hey, you saved me. Like, what can I do to repay you? And she's like, oh, how about dinner and a movie? You know, I'd love to see a movie. And he's like, oh, fantastic. How about for right now, we can go down to the cafeteria and get some pancakes. So we go out to an airport that apparently is just across the street from the hospital. And the ship lands on one of the runways. A couple of airport security guards come out to be like, oh, you can't park here. They get blown up, and the bounty hunter keeps on attacking cops that are coming up, or I should say security guards. So they're firing on the bounty hunter. It's doing nothing. He comes up and he's like, tell me where Coriander is. And he's like, even if I knew what the hell that meant, I still wouldn't tell you. Die, alien scum. And he's just like, all right, well, you're defiant to the end, but it is the end. So we cut over to Sol and Starfire, who are enjoying pancakes. Starfire puts an entire bottle of syrup on hers, and she's like, yes, this is incredible. I love it. And then all of a sudden a security guard comes flying in through the window, and he mumbles out in Starfire's arms, not knowing who Starfire is. She says, save Coriander, warn her. And he's like, what did he say? It's like, it was my name. I don't know this guy, though. What's that about? So they look out at the airport across the street, which is completely on fire. And Starfire's like, he stopped breathing. He's dead. Whoever did this knew my name. I'm going to get some payback. So she flies out over to the airport. We see the bounty hunters just pushing tourists aside, just being like, someone tell me where to find Coriander. And then Starfire comes and kicks him in the face and says like, right here, bitch. So he gets punched through a plane and then like thrown about a little bit. And all the while Starfire's like, you got 1 minute to tell me who you are. He's like, hi, I'm Crag. I was sent here to exterminate you. And she's like, why? What did I do to you? And he's like, nothing. It's a bounty hunter thing. I got a contract. Nothing personal at all. So she's like, all right, well, it feels personal. Get on your ship and never come back or I'm going to kill you. And he's like, yeah, I haven't lost a bounty once. And he fires off a net at Starfire, which starts burning her skin. And she's like, nope, not doing this. And she just rips through the net. And Crag's like, okay, hold on. No one's ever ripped through my net before. That's not allowed. And he just starts getting blasted with star bolts. And eventually she pulls out, I think, a sword. Maybe it's like a helicopter blade or something like that, but pulls out a sword and it's just like, who sent you? Who's your contact? And he's like, oh, it doesn't work like that. I never give up the identity of a client or whatever. And he basically calls her out saying, you won't do it. I've done my research. I know you. You're not that type of person. You won't kill me. And she's like, fair enough, but I will do this. And she hits him across the face with a sword, stabs him in the shoulder, and then drags him over to his ship and throws him into the sleeping pod and sets the sleeping pod to essentially infinite. As long as the ship is active, it will continue to have him, which is going to be potentially thousands of years. And then she goes to the ship's onboard computer, sets it to go to the middle of space, just to some other galaxy, and then send out a beacon, a warning saying, stay away, dangerous, no one come to this ship. So theoretically, he's going to be asleep for like thousands of years. Which I remember the fact that part of his thing was that he had a wife and like children. So that's kind of dark on Corey's side, but, I guess she didn't know that. So at that point, it starts going back up into space, and everyone's like, oh, wow, did you watch her? She was incredible. She's orange. It's my favorite color. And one other guy who just arrived in the airport hears about the alien who's orange-colored and says, hey, never would have expected to see Corey here. This is going to be interesting. It's Grayson. You know it. Getting back to that, is Grayson and Starfire a thing? Question mark. How many books can Grayson be put into? Because his own solo series is selling like hotcakes. Turns out too many. Yeah, it's a fine enough issue. It's still just doing the same. Like, it's the end of the trade, which makes it feel like it should be the end of the arc. But the way that these are written, the way that Amanda Conner and Jim Palmiotti write, it's across multiples of their books, especially the Harley Quinn stuff, is that there aren't really arcs. There are issues, and then a continuous, just evolving storyline thread, like a soap opera sort of thing, where there's A, B, C being explored in issue 1, then B, C, D in issue 2, and then C, D, E in issue 3. Never do you actually have an ending. You just have this continuously evolving cycle of story. So what will happen to Soren? Probably nothing. We've been exploring that for 3 or 4 issues, but it's done now. Now we're introducing Grayson. That's a thing. This relationship with Soul. That's also a thing. So yeah, it's just going to keep on going. This particular issue feels fine for what it is. It feels a little bit weak on the bounty hunter aspect because it is wrapped up so quickly, but it's kind of just what I expect from this book. So I'm going to say this one is a flat 7. It's not quite up to 7.5 for me, but it's still fine. It's still good for what it is, but it is still Starfire. Red Hood / Arsenal number 6, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Denis Medri. So, last issue we had Arsenal getting jumped by Joker's daughter out of nowhere. And this issue literally picks up with that, where it appears that Arsenal has been shot in the back of the head, like blood is pouring out of the back of his skull, and Joker's daughter's trying to make some joke about going into a bar, and she keeps screwing it up. In walks the Hero Manifesto. What's that? You don't know who the hell that is? It's a bunch of villains that have appeared over this book so far. And they're like, what the hell did you do? Don't you know the Hero Manifesto had a bounty on that? Do you have any idea who we are? And Joker's daughter just lists them all off and says all their stuff. It's like, yeah, Susie Sue, Palette, a couple of mimes, and then the ringleader, Dr. Serafina. I don't know if I'm even supposed to recognize that one, but regardless, she's doing all this stuff, and Joker's daughter says, "Hey, I want to join you. I live down in the nether realms of Gotham, and we hear about all the stuff going on up here. I heard about you guys, and consider Arsenal dead here my audition tape. What's up? Can I get in?" And immediately Pallet's like, "I'm gonna crush her. Like, she sucks." And Serafina's like, hold on. If you can also track down and kill Red Hood, then you're in. And they have this running joke about whether or not it includes full dental. But Joker's daughter's like, all right, well, tracking him's the easy part, but killing him's the fun part. So she cartwheels out of there. And then Susie Sue's like, why did you just give our bounty away to this girl again? And Serafina's like, well, A, she managed to take out Arsenal, and she's letting us have the bounty on that. If she can do it again for Red Hood, then, like, the hero manifesto gets all the credit, and she can die anyway. Like, I don't care. So we cut over to Jason, who is taking a plane back to God knows where. He's reminiscing over the fact that he just met up with Bruce, and he's also kind of worried about Arsenal, not because he thinks Arsenal is in any sort of danger, but for some reason he thinks Arsenal might have fallen off the wagon again. And he's like, yeah, you know, he's been going through some stuff with Corey and whatever. But then someone on the plane screams, there's something on the wing, and it's Joker's daughter with a chainsaw who's threatening to cut it off. They've already started, like, taxiing. They can't, like, they're a little bit up in the air, and Jason's like, okay, well, my suit is tucked away in the storage or whatever. I can't get to it. I got to do this in civvies. So he kicks open the door, goes out on the wing, and starts fighting against Joker's daughter. The pilots are like, oh, we got to land now or else those idiots on the wing are going to kill us, but there's no runways available. The jet's taxiing right at us. Turn left. So they swing a turn real quick. It causes Joker's daughter to lose her footing, but Red Hood grabs hold of her and says, hey, don't worry, I've got you. And then she pulls out a gun and is like, by the way, I killed your partner. That's how I found out that you were going to be on this plane, because he has a plane ticket in his pocket. Now it's your turn to die. And Red Hood's like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would to Joker's daughter? Nah. So then we cut over to Arsenal, who is dead, and Susie Sue's taking some pictures for proof to whoever had the bounty out. And she talks about how her and Red Hood had a friendly relationship before, and she's like, oh, maybe he'll need a new partner. How hard could it be to use a bow? And then all of a sudden she gets an arrow into the back of her neck, seemingly straight up killing her. And Arsenal gets up and is like, haha, turns out that I got shot with a paintball full of, like, blood and guts. That's weird. Why did Joker's daughter only make it look like I was dead? Anyway, guess I gotta go out of here. So we then cut back over to Jason, and goddamn, he looks at Joker's daughter and sees how she's, like, not actually trying to kill him, but he can't chalk that up to her being incompetent or actually, like, meaning to not do it. And then he starts making all the equivocations to, like, this is how I was when I first became Red Hood and I wanted to, like, kill Batman or whatever. He still took me in, like, I was lost. I was blaming everybody but me. She's also lost. Look at her. She's just a kid wearing the Joker's face. Don't get more lost than that. Perhaps I could save her, and by saving her, I could save me again. And then the plane touches down on the ground. And they do a panel where it looks like Joker's daughter is plummeting to her death. Meanwhile, the wing is, like, what, 15 feet in the air? Like, it's not that bad, but Jason still has to look away because it's too gruesome. And then as he looks back, she's just happily skipping her way over the fence out of the airport. And so we cut back over to Arsenal, and he's like, all right, well, I guess I should get out of here now. Like, I don't know what the Hero Manifesto even has around here anymore, but I gotta end this. So he gets attacked by Pallet, and Pallet's just like, oh, you shut up, you're going to die. I can't believe you survived that. And then Arsenal just pulls out an arrow that I guess he had on him and shoves it into Pallet's foot, and then pulls it out and shoves it into his chest. And he's like, haha, I got you. It's weird, though, because I kill you, and I've killed a lot of bad guys before, but this one, for whatever reason, is getting to me. Am I maturing? Am I moving on? So we cut over to the mimes and Dr. Serafina. Joker's daughter's shown back up, and she's like, hey, noticed you didn't quite kill Arsenal and or Red Hood. Like, a bunch of bad stuff has happened here. And Joker's daughter's like, wait, why do you, I can do it, but like, why do you want to kill Red Hood and Arsenal so badly? And she's like, I don't want to kill them. It's strictly business. We were going to set up a super-powered thing to be able to take out contracts for powerful corporate clients, but then stupid-ass Arsenal and Red Hood had to start up their own competing business, so this is just knocking off the competition. And Joker's daughter laughs because it's so petty, and Dr. Serafina is just like, all right, well, you know, I can tell that you are purposely just lying to me. Like, I can tell you never intended to actually hunt down Red Hood or whatever. And she's like, no. So Serafina talks about how she made herself a weapon because she was manufactured. It really doesn't matter. But she's about to blast some, apparently, reality warping powers is her thing. And she says that she's going to cure the Joker's daughter's madness just so she can be driven mad again because of the craziness of her crimes. To which Red Hood comes in and says, that's stupid, and ends up shooting the mimes dead again. And so Serafina's like, what? How did you find us? And he's like, I followed Joker's daughter. Like, she's not stealthy. She's very easy to track. So Serafina is just like, all right, well, I can reality warp all this over. We can just change everything. And then Arsenal puts an arrow in her neck. So she's dead. And Joker's daughter says, great, cool. Am I part of the team now? And they're like, wait, what? You want to be part of the team? What's even going on? So we see that everyone who is still alive has been bound up. I guess Susie Sue survived. And look, it's just like 3 straight pages here of Red Hood saying, we should give her a chance to be on the team. And Arsenal saying, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Does it look like she's trying to atone for any past sins? Like, I understand that we were outlaws a couple of months ago, and now we're trying to go on the straight and narrow, but she's still a murderous, crazy psychopath. And we can't, like, have that on the team. And Red Hood goes, tough, because I see myself in her. But he pulls out his gun, aims at Joker's daughter, and says, if you kill anybody, I will put you down immediately. And she's like, I will absolutely break that rule. It will happen sooner than you think. And he's like, fair enough. Also full dental. But before they can do literally anything else relating to anything, we get the hint that the next issue is going to be a tie-in to Robin War, because Joker's daughter's like, yeah, no, down in the Nethers, I hear all this stuff about Robin War. Whatever the hell that means. So, tune in next time. This is the end of the arc. Like, this look, we did all of that crap regarding the spirit of crime or whatever in the last like 2 or 3 issues, but we've been setting up in the background all this stuff of the Hero Manifesto. And it turns out it was all just a red herring side detour plot just to get Joker's daughter in the book. The worst character? I'm not happy with any of this. Frankly, the writing is also just kind of poor. Sometimes when Scott Lobdell like tries to tug on the heartstrings, it does work. I'm not going to say it's completely just failing all the time, but this one, it felt so canned of like, oh, she's messed up. She would write damaged as a tattoo on her forehead, but then again, so would I. Like, okay, sure, whatever. I don't like it. I'm going to say this one is like a 5.5 for me. There was like nothing working for it here, so whatever. Teen Titans number 13, written by Will Pfeifer and Scott Lobdell, art by Ricken, Paolo Pantalena, and Noel Rodriguez. So last issue was literally the worst thing I've ever read. It was terrible. It was awful. It felt horrible. This issue, it feels like they realized how bad they messed up, or at the very least, they're like, we just need to end this arc as quickly as possible. And they just immediately just wrapped it all up. So the plot that was going on prior to the last issue was that there was a prison riot going on, and they were trying to get to Despero because Despero had the answers as to what Superboy's whole thing was. Superboy's now gone, so where do we go from there? Well, we start with Dr. Psycho, who's fighting against Bunker and winning because he's got mental powers. He just like forces Bunker to see that all of his bricks are turning into locusts or whatever, and he's like, yeah, all right, that was like nothing at all, that wasn't hard. And he goes over to Raven and is just like, you, however, are the real prize. And then we go back out to the prison, which turns out there's not a riot. It's just not happening at all, and the elite are there minus Bart and Cassie, because they are obviously away in the previous issue, and Manchester Black's just ordering them around saying like, all right, let's set up a perimeter, blah, 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 whatever like that. And Power Girl, Tanya's just like, hey, wait a minute. I thought we said there was going to be a riot around here, but it's quiet. There's a bunch of guards here. Also, where's our other teammates? And Manchester Black's like, shut up. Follow my orders. You just shut up. And she's just like, all right, fine, whatever. So we then cut over to Cassie, Bart, and Tim, who are in the Harvest headquarters, or Chamber of Harvest, it's labeled as. And Cassie's trying to console Tim while Bart's just like, Bartor is just like, hey, what the heck happened? What the hell was the last issue? What even is going on here? And Cassie's like, shut up. We just lost our friend. It's a whole thing. And he's like, nah, Superboy's gone, and Red Robin sucks, and we all found out he sucked last issue, and he's going to continue to suck. And then Cassie's like, hey, shut up. We don't want to deal with this right now. If you're going to try to help us out here, come up with an idea as to what we can do here. So Tim at that point is overhearing him saying like, there must be a way. There's always a way. And he goes over to the Harvest computer and starts typing away. And Cassie's like, hey, don't ever do it. Like, you just lost your best friend or whatever. And he's like, no, I'm doing this because of Khan. Because screw it, I'm just doing it because of Khan. And yeah, he basically says like, this is the Titans way. We don't ever give up. Don't ever give in. Maybe it's because we're too young to care, but like, we're going to do this, whatever. And when we get out of here, I'm going to make the Teen Titans a team that can be respected. Something that the world respects again. So they're going to kick Scott Lobdell off the book. I assume that's the only way to make that happen. But then Bart's suddenly into it. So then we see Dr. Psycho's being attacked by Beast Boy, who's taken the form of a giant rhino. Dr. Psycho then hacks into Beast Boy's mind and turns him into a hummingbird, and then puts him to sleep. That is the end of that page. So then he goes back over to Raven again and says, hey, wait, no, but like really, I can tell you got some crazy-ass powers up inside you, and I want to take them and make me the most dangerous man in the world. And he hacks into Raven's brain, and then all of a sudden starts spitting up blood because he's been impaled on one of the ribs of Trigon. And we see Raven has seemingly killed Trigon and is sitting on his throne just being like, you don't know what this power can do. I know what this power can do. It can do anything. And we see like, there's also, I'm going to say statues, but like clearly the bodies, the petrified bodies of like the entirety of the Justice Leagues and everything else here in this cave as well. And she's like, here, let me show you what this power can do. And she like throws Dr. Psycho into the psychic winds. And as he's freaking out on the ground, Bunker and Beast Boy come to him and they're like, hey, what'd you do to him? And she's just like, he tried to mess with my power. I don't let that happen. That's all you need to know. And Bunker's like, Jesus, all right, fine, whatever. So we then cut back to the prison, and all of a sudden sensors start freaking out, and in teleports the Titans, Bart, and blah, blah, blah. And just like, haha, I knew the high-tech place would have a way to teleport, and now we're here, and we can stop the riot. And then they all look around, they're like, where's the riot? I thought there was a riot going on. And Beast Boy comes in with Dr. Psycho, says like, nope, just this jerk. He's the only one. So then Raven explains, hey, wait a minute. When we left, there was definitely a riot. How do we get away from that? And it turns out that the power dampeners did go down, but Dr. Psycho was like the only one to take advantage of that. He got out and caused all of the Titans to think they were seeing a riot, when in actuality, no, there was nothing happening there. And then she says, oh, and by the way, I like totally destroyed his mind. And then Red Robin's like, wait a minute, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where's Chimera? She was a member of our team. Ah, crap. So he runs back into the prison. Meanwhile, inside, we see Manchester Black has found Despero. And he's just like, Despero's like, what do you want? And he's just like, Despero, hey, I didn't expect you to be out of your cell. That's concerning. And he's like, yes, no cage can hold me. Now, what do you want? And he's like, the Titans. Screw the Titans. I hate the Titans. I want you to help me kill the Titans. And we can do that with you on my side. And I swear to God, Despero does did you get all that? And it turns out that Power Girl then leaps in and punches Manchester Black in the face because Despero wasn't Despero. It was Chimera. Chimera was just pretending to be Despero. And Power Girl's like, I knew it. I knew that the elite was, especially you. You weren't on the up and up. This was all a thing just to take down the Titans. And Manchester Black's like, you don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, I literally just heard you say it. Come on, man. You're just an asshole. And so she continues throwing punches, doing whatever. And then Manchester Black says, wait, like, you don't understand the big picture. You don't even know your own powers. And then all of a sudden, Power Girl grows massively in size, which if you know Power Girl, it's not one of her powers. So he's like, haha, see, you're just the first. I've done covert radiation treatments. I put drugs in your food. I made you this. And then she does the thing from Avengers, Hulk and Loki, where she just grabs Manchester Black by the feet and starts going, and she's like, no one else made me. You didn't make me anything. So at that point, her eyes are glowing, like clearly something's a bit wrong. Tim steps in saying, hey, heroes don't kill. You don't kill. Don't kill them. And she's like, what? What happened? She starts shrinking back down to size. And Cassie's like, hey, I don't know what's going on, but like, you're not going to be able to, like, he's not going to hurt anyone. Everything's going to be fine. So at that point, a couple of guards are talking, saying, hey, we got some reinforcements coming in because, like, these guys shouldn't be here. It's just one guy. He's going to be awesome. So we then see everyone's talking and they're saying, like, yeah, all right, we're going to be putting away Manchester Black, and like, everyone here who's part of the elite is welcome onto the team of being a Teen Titan, because, you know, it's not really a membership thing. It's more just a vibe. It's more of a feel or whatever. And all of a sudden, a light shines and it says, greetings, mortals. Bask in my glory. Raven gets taken out. She goes down. Because like, oh, you dare use sorcery in my realm. And then Red Robin goes down and he's like, ha, you're just a dude. You don't even have anything special. Bunker goes down. He's like, nah, I don't care about your bricks. Same thing to Beast Boy. And then we zoom out. We see who it is who's like, oh, allow yourself to sun yourself in the glory of my transcendence. Behold, I am the Alpha Centurion, and I come to bring these teenage miscreants to justice. You're all under arrest, Teen Titans. And that's the bit. That's what we did. For anyone who doesn't know what the hell an Alpha Centurion is, Scott Lobdell's writing another book called Doomed. There's a character in that who's imbued, much the same way that Cassie is with her armor. He's imbued with the spirit of the Alpha Centurion, who seeks out justice and glory. And now he's here. Yay. Look, I don't care. I don't care. I said last time I'm so done with this book, and kudos to them for at least trying to wrap up the arc, to at least try to say like, oh yeah, right, there was a whole thing with a riot or whatever. How do we square that? How do we get back to that? But like, nah, you can't just say like, and then Manchester Black just got tricked by a shapeshifter that he knew was there the whole time. Like, it's dumb. It's dumb. And I blame Scott Lobdell. Will Pfeiffer's been on this book for a while. He was doing fine. And then Scott comes in and says, yeah, but let's make it crap. So, yeah. Frankly, I'm kind of refusing to give this book anything over like a 5 until it does some major changes to make me care again. So 4.5. Not good. In fact, 4. Every time I say a number, I'm going to lower it by half a point. 3.5. Screw it. Batman Superman number 26, written by Greg Pak, art by Arjun Siaf and Cliff Richards. So, last issue, we had Vandal Savage threatening a bunch of Siberians that they had to dig up some uranium or something or he'd kill them. And then Superman shows up with not only Batgirl, but also Red Hood and Grayson, because it's Batman, Superman. Why not? So this issue picks up with the Siberians are trying to get these warheads or whatever out of the ground. And they're like, oh, our machinery is too old. It's too rusty. It's too much of a risk, but everything weighs far too much. Like, if it falls, we're all going to die. And then they're like, if we don't do this, we're going to die because Vandal Savage is going to kill us. And someone suggests that they all run away. And they say Vandal Savage will hunt us down to the end of the earth. Like, we're all screwed. We're all going to die. And then we see a big lumbering shadow come out of the snowstorm. They start opening fire on it. And immediately a bunch of different things come out and take their weapons because it's, of course, Superman and the Bat family. And just like, hey, stop shooting. We're here to help. And immediately they're like, wait a minute, you're Superman? And Superman's like, yeah, let me introduce the rest of the Bat family. Here we have Batgirl. And over there. And then immediately like, hooray, it's Superman. Like, you can fly and you can, like, just, like, take Vandal Savage and throw him into the sun, right? We're totally saved. And he's like, ooh, you guys don't get internet out here, do you? I don't have a whole lot of powers and I'm not invulnerable anymore. And, you know, I'm kind of just strong right now. That's kind of my whole thing. And immediately the guy just pulls back out his gun and he's like, then you're just a liability. Vandal Savage will kill us for even talking to you. Get out of here. Go on, get. But one of the missiles that they were trying to lift up, the cable snaps. It looks like it's about to crush this man and his family. And they all fall to the ground, covering their heads. However, it doesn't kill them. And as they look up, they see Superman has caught this multiple-ton missile. And they're like, oh, hey, you are strong. You are Superman still. And he's like, yeah, totally. Can you move, though? Because I'm like, this is very heavy. So we see they all work together to get the missile up and locked off. They tie it down. And they're like, hooray, yeah, we did it. Let's go inside. And Superman basically says, like, all right. So, yes, I'm still a little strong. Here's the deal. Batgirl's a genius. She is going to look over all the tech of this stuff, and we're going to try to prepare that for Vandal Savage's return. Grayson here is, and then Grayson's just like, I'm still kind of a super spy. Can we maybe not reveal stuff about my secret identity? And he's like, Grayson here's a guy who's going to help you make new identities. Just in case things go south, we'll have an escape plan. And then he looks over to Red Hood, and he's just like, and this is Red Hood. He's going to be your weapons guy. He's going to teach you guys how to fight because even if, you know, something happens here, you guys should know how to fight. So we're basically doing Seven Samurai. That's more or less what's going on here. And for people who aren't cultured, Bug's Life. We then go and get a stockpile of all the different weapons or whatever. And Red Hood points out, like, bro, it doesn't matter how many weapons we got. Like, we're playing with butter knives here. Vandal Savage managed to kick your ass recently. You really think this is going to do a dent in him? And then one of the guys is like, we've got these cases of C4. And he's like, okay, we might be able to put a dent in him. So at that point, Superman goes off, talks over to Batgirl, who's looking at the teleporter pad, which is how Vandal Savage gets up here. And she's like, we don't want to like mess with it or disable it here because Vandal would just show up. We want to find a way to redirect the teleport to somewhere else that will give us a bit more time. And Superman's like, yeah, like the inside of a 10-foot cement block. And like one of the Siberians laughs and Batgirl's like, you're joking though, right? Because like that's not what Superman would say, right? And Superman's like, yeah, so keep going. We then cut back inside. Grayson's asking two people like, all right, what do you want your new name to be? And one of them says Anna. And then the other one looks over at Superman and says, I want to be called Clark. And Grayson's like, that's very nice of you. However, you should pick a name that has absolutely nothing to do with anything about you before. And the kid just stomps on Superman's foot and is just like, did you feel that? And he's like, nope, not at all. And the kid picks up a fork and just like stabs it into Superman's shoulders. Like, did you feel that? And he's like, not really. Nope, didn't feel that. So at that point, Grayson starts talking to the mother character, just being like, hey, look, to be frank with you, to completely level, Vandal Savage is immortal. for all intents and purposes. So we need these new identities to be airtight because they need to last for the rest of your life and probably your children's lives as well. Just want to make that clear to you, okay? Like this, he's going to keep on coming down if we don't do this right. He has the patience to do that. And then Superman, as he's still being stabbed by the fork, is like, all right, well, I'm starting to feel that a little bit. So we cut to them outside, and Red Hood's like, bro, you are bleeding profusely from your shoulder. And he's like, yeah, it was a fork. Don't worry about it. And Red Hood basically sits down with Superman and says, look, we need to talk this through, okay? Like, even if everything works out exactly the way we want it to here, we have to deal with the fact that we probably aren't going to be able to kill Vandal, or we're not going to be able to subdue Vandal Savage in any way that's actually going to save these people. We have to talk about actually killing him. Like, are you cool with that idea, Superman? And Superman doesn't say anything, but Grayson and Batgirl show up, and they're like, no, of course he wouldn't. That's not why. He's Superman. He wouldn't kill or anything like that. And so they start bickering about what to do with Vandal, like teleporting him to Hawaii or whatever. And Red Hood is just like, it's not going to stop him. Nothing you're talking about is going to stop this man. He is immortal, and he is dangerous, and he is very smart. So at that point, Red Hood points over to the warheads that they are trying to get up out of the ground and saying, like, if we have to, we set off one of those. That might actually deal with Vandal Savage. And everyone's like, that's the worst idea. We can't possibly do that. But Superman has since wandered off, and he's like, hey, everyone, just want to make it clear, shadow people. And then, of course, if you've been reading this book, you know all about the shadow people. Or maybe it's over in Superman. I honestly can't remember. Shadow people. It's just kind of a thing he has to fight. It's part of the ongoing plot. And we see immediately Red Hood and him bust into the fight and start just murdering these shadow beings. And he's like, yeah, no, let's get it. Don't let them cut you or you'll get infected by it. And immediately Grayson jumps in being like, I thought we weren't going to kill anyone. And Batgirl says, nah, it's okay. If Superman's murdering them, it means they're non-sentient because there's no way Superman would murder people. So they just immediately start smashing heads. However, turns out that Superman called in the cavalry, which is to say Jim Gordon Batman. So he shows up in his big old bat blimp, and he lands, and he looks over at Batgirl being like, I told you to stay away from Superman. And he's like, yeah, well, too late for that now. So they all jump into the fray together. Batman's like, I read the data. You're right, these things are non-sentient. But you didn't know that before we went into this, Batgirl. You were just trusting Superman. It's like, yeah, of course I was trusting. You're trusting Superman. What are you talking about? He's like, no, I was trusting Superman's data. Totally different. So regardless, they go through, they take out all the shadow creatures, and Superman and Batman talk, and they're like, okay, so the fact that shadow creatures are here means that Vandal Savage is responsible for more than just this book. He's also over in the Superman book. Seem like my theories are starting to check out. And Batman's like, yeah, it seems to confirm everything. So basically what they run through is like, turns out that this decommissioning site for these missiles was bought and paid for like 3 or 4 decades ago by a bunch of corrupt politicians that have all since died. And it's only now that that Vandal Savage managed to take these contracts to do the mining here. And it's totally on the up and up technically. But he is tapping into it now all these years later. However, all the shadow people were not guarding the uranium. They were guarding this random ass patch of ice. And Superman says, also, in the previous arc, we had the artificial sun from Wayne Tech. All this stuff is to do with power. It's supposed to be power sources and all that. This is something that he's building up for mass destruction, more so than even just uranium would do. And whatever it is, it's right underneath this ice. So Batman launches some cannons off his shoulder, and the ice disappears to reveal a giant Nazi airship. And Red Hood goes, well, that looks bad. And that's the issue. How do I know it's a Nazi airship? It's got a giant swastika on the side. And it's a shield. A shield helicarrier looking thing. Like, it's massive. So, okay. I think I said at the end of the last issue I was kind of really intrigued by the idea of not having Batman around in the book. Like, they left on bad terms. It's not something they wanted to continue, but you can continue with the idea of Batman, Superman by having the Bat family come in. I actually really like that. I think for most of this issue it's handled well. I kind of don't like the fact they brought back in Batman. It's not that it's handled poorly, but I don't know. I wanted to see what they could do with that as a concept of just, here's the Bat family working with Superman instead. Having Jim back is fine. It's okay, but it does feel just a little bit overstretched at times. So I'm going to say this one is a 7.5. I think I really like the playfulness of having each of the different members do stuff and having Red Hood be like, here's the pragmatic thing, here's what we have to do, and then the other ones are the more optimistic of Superman will find a way out. And you actually have Superman kind of caught in the middle of all that. That's all top tier. My only real negative on art-wise is I don't like the way they do Grayson. Maybe I just have too much of a direct visual image for how I picture Grayson. This ain't it. His hair is too flat. I needed to have some poof. So yeah, 7.5, but it's better than I expected it to be. Batman and Robin Eternal number 6, written by Tynion and Snyder, art by Tony S. Daniels. So last issue was a whole thing with Tim Drake and Grayson fighting because blah, blah, blah. This issue picks up with Grayson talking about how running into Bruce was kind of a whole thing because he's like, I can see him. He's still Bruce. I know Batman's in there somewhere probably, but he seems free from the pain and I don't want to put him back through that. So we see that the church where all the most recent stuff has been happening, Jason and Grayson met up, and Jason's like, look, Tim discovered a signal or something that like triggered all the people to attack. We think it might be Mother, so I'm going to go with Tim and I'm going to go deal with that. And Grayson's like, okay, yeah, sounds good, do that. But Jason actually like pauses and just like, hey, I want you to know that like, whatever it is that's going on there, we still got to be trusting each other. Like, the one good thing that Bruce did, no matter what, is that he chose us. Like, he made us all brothers here. And Grayson's like, who the hell are you? What do you do with Jason? This doesn't sound like you at all. But Jason then asks what they're doing here at this church, and he's like, look, when we were dealing with the Scarecrow case way back in my first year, we came here to this church, and we didn't know anything was weird about it, but check this out. And they go inside of the statue that's been opened up now, and inside is the full training area. And Jason's like, they must have been here for like ever. And he's like, yeah. And Batman may not have known, but I don't know if he knew or not because I don't know anything about what's going on here. And whatever it was, it all started here. So we got to figure out where it went to next. So then we get flashbacks. We go back to the rest of that story where Scarecrow is taking off in a plane. Robin and Batman are on motorcycles. They're chasing it down. Batman's like, all right, let's pull back. He's going to be able to fly off. And Robin's like, no, I got this. And he grapples up onto the plane. Batman's telling him, hey, man, don't do this. Back off. And Robin just wants to prove himself. And as he gets up to the plane, he does a little Robin hacking thing to be able to open up the plane door. And inside is not Scarecrow, but two actual scarecrows that are all laced with explosives. So the plane blows up. Grayson gets knocked out. Batman manages to grab him in the bat plane and grab him out of the air. And we skip some time ahead where we see Robin is super pissed off. He's in the cave like, it was stupid. I shouldn't have gone for it. You told me to back off. I'm a crap Robin. I know you want me to be better. I'm not going to screw up again. He's like, I know you won't. You're good. Like, stop beating yourself up about this. Bruce Wayne has a gala going on upstairs, and the commissioner's daughter is here tonight, so maybe you want to come up? And he's like, no, I got to keep training. I got to be down here. I want to focus down here. And Batman's like, okay, are you still feeling like the fear toxin stuff where you're not a good enough Robin for me? And he's like, that's not the fear toxin stuff. I'm after everything. Aren't you just a little bit afraid that it might be true? So we see Bruce goes up to the gala alone, and he talks to this guy named Maxwell Dawsey. Does not matter. However, as he's talking to Dawsey, he's like, oh, hey, let's talk about the ideal of legacy and fathers and whatever like that. And it's a nice little talk, but Dawsey basically goes in and says, well, you know, hey, what about Mrs. Wayne? You ever gonna settle down, Bruce? And he's like, I've got too much darkness in me. And Maxwell's like, I want to tell you a secret. See that woman in there? I just met her at this party. Me and her got to talking. We have a whole bunch of interests and whatever. She's a real catch. She works at the Gotham Museum. And he's like, oh, that's awesome. And Darcy's like, and that's all bullshit. I bought her. It cost me like $4 million. And he's like, what? And he's like, yeah. I went to Prague and I met up with this woman. And like, I shouldn't be telling you any of this. Like, top down, keep this a secret. But you seem like a normal type of dude, Bruce. So yeah, I went to Prague. And there was this woman there. She went by the name of Mother. And I don't know what she did, but like, whoever my wife was before, she erased that person, got rid of them, and then basically tailor-made my wife to all of my things, all the stuff I wanted to see in a woman. And now I have this wonderful woman here. And Bruce is like, what? That's not cool, man. And Darcy's like, well, aren't you kind of doing the same thing with this Dick Grayson kid? Like, you're taking him in and you're just shaping him to be whatever it is you want after he's been through a traumatic experience. But then Darcy looks over and he sees like a big strong man standing in the door. He's like, never mind. That was all a joke. I met her in a pottery class. Bye, Bruce. And then he just runs off. So Bruce heads down to the cave and he's like, cave, computer, we have anything on someone named Mother? And the cave's like, no. And it's like, run a scan on that guy who was standing in the doorway at my party. Do we have anything on that guy? Computer goes, no. And it's like, okay. Do we have anything on Darcy's wife? Her name is Alicia. Anything on that? And it's like, no, she doesn't exist. And it's like, all right, well, this is weird. So he hacks into the security cams of Maxwell's house, and we see at that exact moment, Orphan is taking out the cameras, and Batman's like, ah, crap, okay. So he peels out of there, and he tells the computer to open a new case file on Mother. And we get a page which is essentially just prose. It's a lot of paragraphs here. But it boils down to, there was a woman named Gwyneth Stone, who at 8 years old, her parents were gunned down in an alleyway, and then she disappeared off the face of the earth. And then, however many years later, Alicia Mornay showed up, and she was to be engaged to Maxwell Darcy. It happened very quickly, and now she's dead. And Batman pieced it together. Someone is making the crime alley scene happen over and over and over again with the intent of traumatizing people so that they can be molded at their weakest moment. And it's someone named Mother, and Batman's like, this is horrible, I hate this, but like, I also feel like I might kind of be doing this myself with Dick Grayson. Am I guilty of doing that? So he goes back to the cave. Grayson passes out at some point. He wakes up and just like, hey, Batman, you're in costume. Did you go out again? And he's like, hey, don't worry about it. We got to go to Prague because whatever's going on is over in Prague. And Grayson's like, seriously? Awesome. That's cool. But hey, I want you to know, I'm not going to disappoint you, Batman. I'm going to be whatever you want me to be. And Batman's like, okay, maybe don't say it like that. But yeah, thank you. Cool. Great. So we cut back to present day, and we see Grayson has taken Harper and Cassandra, and they're putting them in a safe house that he's kept in Gotham for all this time. There's no way they're going to be in danger. And Jason's like, okay, it doesn't seem like that's going to work, but whatever, fair enough. But he says that he's got to go out to Prague. He's got to go out and find exactly what it was that made all this happen here. So we see Cass and Harper are up on top of a roof just staring out at the city, and then all of a sudden there's a blinding light, and in comes Grayson on a drone, jet, something's able to just hover, and he's like, hey, get in, losers, we're going shopping. And then we see Mother is watching from a screen, and someone says, hey, they're coming to Prague, do we want to, like, I don't know, stop them? And Mother's like, no, they're exactly where we want them to be. So that's the issue. I really like it. Tony S. Daniel does great work on the art, as he usually does. And then writing-wise, it just feels succinct. It feels like, okay, we gave you a month of these issues. We peppered in all these mysteries to begin with, and now we're just going to start slowly unraveling. And it's got a good pace to it, I think, is the biggest thing here. I feel like, we're not jumping between 6 different plot lines. We're not doing any of the other stuff that made Eternal feel like it was a slog yet. Obviously, that can change. But this one, it feels like it's got a very centralized mystery. We'll, of course, be looking at different satellites of that. But this one was focused. It was down to it. And I really appreciate it. So overall, I think I got to say this one is I'll give it an 8. I think it gets up to the 8 for me. It's very good. And that's it. That is all the comics that came out from DC Comics this November 11th, 2015. And God, every time I look at the date, I have it already registered in my mind what the final date of this show is when I'm finally going to hit the end date. And it's coming so quick. It's barreling down. I mean, technically I have about 30 episodes left. In fact, exactly 30 episodes left, which is maybe 31. It's always whenever you're counting it up, do you count the extra zero that begins or ends it? Regardless, it's coming. I'm very happy about that, and also a little bit wistful. Already I'm building up a bit of nostalgia of like, hey, remember back when I was at episode 100 and I said, dear God, the show's never going to end? Oh, how silly we were back then. Anyway, you're not here for me that point yet. We'll get there. For right now, you're looking up next week's comics. And next week, episode 220, we've got 13 of them on the way in alphabetical order, more or less. We have Action Comics, Bizarro, Dr. Fate, Doomed, Earth 2 Society, Green Lantern, The Lost Army, Harley Quinn, Martian Manhunter, New Suicide Squad, Secret Six, Telos, Titans Hunt, and our weekly book, Batman and Robin Eternal. So, very light week, all things considered. It's kind of a normal week in general, but I've been smacked with so many 17s recently that I take 13 as a blessing. But hey, if you have any comments on any of the comics I talked about this week, last week, any week at all, go ahead and hit them up in the comments section down beneath this video if you're watching that version. If you're listening to the audio version, we have a subreddit, we have a Discord, we have a Patreon, we have a bunch of different places that you can share your opinions. Discord's probably best because, it's like there and not locked behind a paywall and also not Reddit, so, bunch of positives going for it there. But no, you could share wherever. I'll get it eventually, probably, maybe. But no, I am very happy to read any comments I get on any of this stuff, even if it happens to be spam. So yeah, that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening, however it is consume this podcast. Be sure to tune in next week and give this thing a positive interaction. But always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.